Chapter 138, Fusion. Chapter 138, Fusion. Late at night. The iceberg was giving out an icy air. The white ripples, propagating from the iceberg, were chilling the surrounding area. 1,000 meters away from the iceberg, the warriors from the 4 big groups woke up, in surprise, and gazed at the iceberg in melancholy. Several low-level warriors moved out, away from the iceberg, at their seniors' gestures. The warriors remaining near the iceberg were all either at higher realms or had rare treasures. Many vagabond warriors, far away from the iceberg, also noticed this anomaly. All of them were looking at the iceberg in excitement, whereas the low-level warriors moved farther away as the cold atmosphere became more dense. Suddenly, Xia Xinyan appeared and stood 3 meters from Shuryen. Xia Xinyan's sexy figure was shining with a greenish light. The greenish light was shining in direct opposition of the cold air. Xia Xinyan thought of something and frowned, looking at Shuryen in surprise. Far away, the experts from the 4 big groups were all watching the iceberg in wonder. No one was striking the iceberg this time, but the iceberg was still emitting colder and colder air. Was it fighting back? Shoo! Suddenly, crystalline light erupted from the iceberg, looking like thousands of arrows. The crystalline light was even colder than those ripples. Warriors from the 4 big groups were suddenly thrown into a panic as they struggled against the crystalline sparks. Those warriors who were slow were all turned into ice statues after being struck by the crystalline light. Xia Xinyan was astonished. Her hands shimmered as she produced strange seals in the form of green lotuses. As the crystalline light flew towards Shuryen, Xia Xinyan would throw out green lotuses toward it. Shuryen had his eyes closed and was still cultivating. Inside his body, the negative energy was attacking his blood like a sharp weapon. As his blood boiled, Shuryen's whole body was shaking due to the immense negative aura. The thought of training in the second sky of Rampage, when his meridians were undergoing changes due to negative energy, had suddenly come into Shuryen's mind, and this was his first attempt. To train in the second sky of Rampage while his meridians were purifying the negative energy. This was what dawned on him, and this was his first try. While he was on the iron ship, Shuryen had repeatedly practiced the second sky of Rampage, trying to fuse the negative energy in his blood. But all of his attempts ended in failure. Just one time, when he was on the brink of losing his consciousness, the negative energy had suddenly moved and was about to fuse with his blood. After pondering for a long time, Shuryen reached the conclusion that the negative energy could be fused with his blood only when the energy was about to be purified. Later, Shuryen tried many times to implement his thoughts, but was still unable to achieve success. Shuryen knew he was correct, so he tried to achieve his thoughts till at the verge of losing his consciousness. All the 720 meridians in his body were under tremendous pressure as the negative energy slowly his mind. The idea of fusing the negative energy with his blood was deeply engraved in his mind. Even at that moment, he was still trying to fuse the negative energy in his blood. His blood was boiling and all of his bones were under massive strain. Shuryen shouted in a low voice, straining to achieve success, but the negative energy and his blood were still in conflict. The cold ripples were quietly wrapping around Shuryen. Cold air was diffusing through his body and seeping into his veins, bones, and flesh. Shuryen had no time to protect against the cold air with his profound qi, as he was still immersed in merging the negative energy with his blood. His body was trembling a lot. The cold air was continuously entering Shuryen's body, nearly turning him into an ice statue. Xia Xinyan was very anxious when looking at Shuryen, wondering whether to help him against the cold air. More and more ice was gathering around Shuryen due to the surrounding cold air. Even Xia Xinyan, who was at the Earth realm, felt her profound qi slowing down. Shuryen was stone stiff. It was as if the ripples emerging out of the iceberg had found something interesting and were gushing toward Shuryen from all directions. Ka. While Shuryen was trembling from the cold, ice was rapidly covering his whole body. Xia Xinyan's expression changed as she sensed a dense cold air in Shuryen, which was as strong as Baimingshang's polar ice fire martial spirit. Xia Xinyan stopped hesitating, intending to drive out the cold air from Shuryen. At that moment, Shuryen's meridians suddenly glittered. His 720 meridians produced light all at once. Shi Yan's body was now like a starry sky. Xia Yan was totally shocked. The next moment, 720 wisps of odd energy went into Shi Yan's body. The odd energy in Shi Yan fused with the negative energy and gushed into his blood veins. Howl! Shi Yan was in a terrible pain, and he bellowed and rolled on the ground. Xia Yan was getting anxious as she didn't know what to do. Shi Yan, she bent down and whispered, "What can I do to help you? Answer me." Xia Yan was incredibly anxious. "I'm okay. Don't worry about me," Shi Yan said in a tremble. The ice on him melted quickly and the cold air slowly disappeared. Xia Yan didn't know what was happening with Shi Yan, but she was still on guard. Bang, bang, bang. At a distance, the people from the 4 big groups had begun another round of strikes. But the strange symbols surrounding the iceberg once again shone in the light, defending the iceberg from their barrage. Shi Yan bellowed for half an hour, then lay quietly on the ground. "Shi Yan, what are you training in? I've never seen anyone in such a pain while training." "Shi Yan, stop it. Stop whatever you are training in. Train in something else I can provide." Xia Yan was very sad as she squatted beside Shi Yan and whispered her advice. Shi Yan didn't reply, as if in a deep sleep. Xia Yan stayed beside Shi Yan and covered him in a green light, supporting his body so that he wouldn't fall into one of the ditches. The sky was bright. As the sun rose, the iceberg once again became quiet, and the ripples stopped spreading. People from the 4 big groups were covered in sweat, but were all still smiling in excitement. The light emitted by the symbols around the iceberg had become dim. All of them thought that the strange symbols had lost their power. At the thought of what could be hiding inside the iceberg, everyone was ecstatic. Shi Yan woke up slowly with a tired and pale face. Those eyes were full of excitement. He was correct in his hypothesis. When his meridians were purifying the negative energy, he had entered a crazy state. In that state, he had lost all of his reason and wanted to do all sorts of bad things. And that period was the best time to fuse the negative energy with his blood. At night, all that strange energy went into the blood. With help from that strange energy, the negative energy had immediately started fusing with his blood. The strange power seemed to have changed his blood and made it accept the negative energy. With a pale face, Shi Yan struggled to sit and took a deep breath, trying to operate the negative energy. The negative energy once again started fusing with his blood, this time without any issues. His blood was boiling, as if on fire. He could feel that his strength had greatly increased. A strong bloodthirst overwhelmed his body. Shi Yan was stunned as he realized that the negative energy had turned icy, but his body was still unaffected. His body seemed to have adapted to the cold air. Edited by Jimmy and Eli. Chapter 139, Sight Clearing. Chapter 139, Sight Clearing. Cold energies were entering into my body while I was training? Shi Yan frowned and looked at Xia Yan. Yes, a lot of them. Xia Yan elaborated the strange thing that had happened to him. Shi Yan was shocked. When the strange cold energy entered his blood, it not only fused with his blood, but also made the negative energy fuse with his blood. It also adapted him to the surrounding cold air and cold energy. So was it good or a bad thing? Shi Yan's expressions were rapidly changing. Stop training with that martial skill. Xia Yan paused and continued. I feel that this martial skill is too vicious. Though it's quite powerful, its adverse effects are also frightening. You will find many interesting martial skills when you get to the Yang family. You won't have to suffer such pain again. On the iron ship of the Yin Yang Wonderland, Xia Yan had already seen that the martial skill Shi Yan was practicing was very strange. Now, as she saw Shi Yan suffering from such tremendous pain, she started believing it to be a vicious practice. She tried persuading Shi Yan to change his ways. I can handle it, Shi Yan thought and replied with an indifferent tone. It was really strange that whenever he trained in Rampage, he had to suffer unimaginable pain every time. However, the gain in strength after each practice made him hesitate. This mysterious martial spirit produced a type of negative energy that enabled him to jump through cultivation realms in terms of combat power. He couldn't resist it. Xia Xinyan sighed to herself as she realized that Shiyan wouldn't listen to her. She knew Shiyan to be strong and untamable, so she stopped trying to persuade him. The iceberg is going to explode in, at most, 2 days. Its power has nearly dried up. We don't know what will happen then, so we must be careful. Okay, I got it. Shiyan nodded and thought for a while, then smiled. Thank you for protecting me. Xia Xinyan gave a brief smile. You have treated me well. It makes sense that I should return the favor. Shiyan beamed and giggled. I may be heartless to others, but to you, I'm quite different. Xia Xinyan was a little happy as she rolled eyes at Shiyan, smiling, glib. Shiyan grinned. At noontime. After some recovery, the experts from the 4 big groups were all ready to make trouble again. After discussing amongst themselves for a while, Dongfang he came to the front, with an icy face and spoke in a cold voice, You vagabond warriors, leave now. There will be an even greater earthquake soon. If you don't want to die, then leave now. Beside Dongfang he, the other warriors from the Dongfang family were all gazing at the freeloaders with murderous expressions. Gu Jianga cupped his hands and smiled, saying to them, Everybody, it is really dangerous here. For the sake of your own lives, please leave now. You have all reached your current realms after struggling throughout all these years. Don't waste it on something worthless. For Nirvana realm warriors were standing at the side of Gu Jianga, with rigid faces. They are driving us away. Xia Xinyan said, with some anger in her voice, These 4 big groups want to share all the treasures amongst themselves. They know that the iceberg shall break soon, and so, before that happens, they want to clear the site so that they don't have to share with anyone else. Shiyan, with a rigid face, kept looking at those people. Qin Duo from the magical wonderland was the next one to speak. With a big smile he said, Everybody, it's already enough that you were able to watch everything till now. Please evacuate, this is your last chance. Though what he said could be said to be considerate, his eyes were clearly saying something else, a threat. Xu Yanqing, from the Heaven Lake Divine Land, was silent and in a meditative posture, as she was still recovering from some injuries. The members of the Heaven Lake Divine Land were observing everything with cold faces. There were still a few warriors, some 1,500 meters away from the iceberg, showing their unwillingness and anger, but they said nothing. After a short period of silence, those people started leaving the area, sighing heavily and cursing. You get lost too. Dongfang He's scorching eyes fell on Shiyan and Xia Xinyan, and he sneered, Get lost right away if you want to live, or I will take your lives before the iceberg shatters. Sigh. Gu Jianga sighed, smiled bitterly at Xia Xinyan and Shiyan, and shook his head. It's not that we want to drive you away, it's for your own safety's sake. So leave as soon as possible. Let's go. Controlling her indignation, Xia Xinyan pulled Shiyan's coat and walked away silently. Shiyan kept silent, but his face was gloomy. Stay away from me. You shall yourself be responsible for whatever happens, should I see the 2 of you again. Dongfang he stared at their backs and threatened. Uncle He, what are you doing? They are probably the 2 who robbed the ship of the Yinyang Wonderland. After Shiyan and Xia Xinyan's figures disappeared, Gu Jianga frowned. The corpse sect and the Yinyang Wonderland had promised that whoever catches those 2 will be very well rewarded. Really? Dongfang he was surprised before he grunted, Leave them alone for now. After this iceberg has been dealt with, let's catch them as we leave. Though we are not close to the corpse sect and the Yinyang Wonderland, we would still help them, considering the good reward. Same here. Gu Jianga grinned. That woman is quite audacious. Maybe she has something in her hand. But, since Uncle He is with us, they can't fly away. Before we hand them to the Yinyang Wonderland, I want to talk with that woman. Gu Jianga's were glistening in lust. Jianga, you're so naughty. Dongfang he beamed, but showed no concerns. That gorgeous lady has really a hot figure. It's okay with me if you play with her, but you can't be serious about it. You're engaged to Xiao Kei, and if she finds out about this, I can't do anything to help you. Stop kidding me, Uncle He. You know me. Gu Jianga smiled in embarrassment. I am reminding you because I know you too well. Dongfang he showed a fake smile. Gu Jianga cupped his hands in front of his chest and assured, I know Uncle he cares about me. Don't worry, I won't go too far. Dongfeng he nodded. The two stopped in a ditch, some 3,000 meters away from the iceberg. They could only see a small part of the iceberg. Yan's eyes were filled with a cold anger. Pissed? Xia Xinyan glanced at him. The four big groups are really aggressive. Yan nodded and sneered. As the secret of the iceberg is going to be revealed soon, they want to clear the area so that everybody else will stay away from it. We went all the way for nothing. Aggressive? Xia Xinyan beamed. Your Yang family has done so many things that are even more aggressive. If the 3 Shura kings of your family were here today, those people wouldn't get a say in anything. Your Yang family alone is enough to drive these 4 powers away altogether. Is the Yang family really so bossy? Yan replied in surprise. You will know soon. Xia Xinyan nodded. If the Yang family experts were here, they would have cleared the site even before attacking the iceberg. Only those who could survive a hit from the experts from the Yang family would have a chance to share in the secrets of the iceberg with them. They would torture the 4 powers first, then only, possibly, allow them to join in. Is that enough bossy for you or not? Is the Yang family one of the top powers among the 15 powers in the Endless Sea? Definitely. It could be ranked number 3 or number 2. Xia Xinyan said in a heavy tone. Didn't the King Yangqing step into the spirit realm 10 years ago? You said that the Master of the Corpse Sect and the Queen of Sky and King of Earth of the Yin-Yang Wonderland had also stepped into the spirit realm long ago? They were apparently much earlier than King Yangqing. Hehe. You will learn all the details as soon as you get back to the Yang family. Actually, though, as one of your allies, I don't know much of the Yang family. The Yang family is pretty good at keeping secrets. You will know how capable your family is when you get there. Bang, bang, bang. Just then, a thunderous noise came from the direction of the iceberg. The sky was filled with dazzling lights, and all sorts of treasures fell upon the iceberg, striking deeply into it. After a period of serenity, the experts from the 4 powers struck again. From a long distance away, Yan could only see a few of the mysterious symbols on the iceberg, which were becoming dimmer and dimmer, reaching the brink of not existing at all. They have started again. Xia Xinyan spoke in a serious tone. Let's not go near them, or they will immediately attack us. Okay. Yan nodded. Deafening sounds ceaselessly came from the iceberg. The latter was producing more crystalline ripples with cold energy. Even at a distance of 3,000 meters, Yan could still feel the increasing chill. More and more strings of light gathered around the iceberg, and, gradually, those mysterious symbols began to shimmer. Finally, one after another, these mysterious symbols exploded on the iceberg. The iceberg, of which just a mere tip was visible, had many cracks appearing on it. More crystalline ripples and cold lights shot out from it, make the crowd quite busy. Ka. From inside the iceberg, a huge explosion erupted, while a stream of freezing air swept over the entire area. Edited by Jimmy and Eli. Chapter 140, Skyfire. Chapter 140, Skyfire. Yan and Xia Xinyan, standing at a distance of about 3,000 meters, were solemnly watching the collapse of the iceberg. Some 10-odd warriors were also standing nearby, being very reluctant to retreat. Like Shur and Xia, they were also coerced by the 4 big groups to leave. However, a human most covets something that is unattainable. Even when there wasn't the slightest possibility, the people were still lingering around the area, with a hope to catch a glimpse of the iceberg secrets. Boom! The sound of ice cracking gained in volume. Mountains collapsed and volcanoes, once again, erupted and started spewing lava, scorching the surrounding earth. The ground shattered into great chasms, some even having numerous icebergs of which only the tips could be seen. The land seemed to be filled with countless icebergs. Yan and Xia Xinyan were both rooted to the spot while looking at the distant volcano. The experts from the big groups were still bombarding the iceberg, using all possible means and martial arts to proceed. The white ripples from the iceberg increased in density, carrying frigid air that was 10 times colder than the surrounding area. The vibrations from the earthquakes had slowed down, but the ground was now completely covered with a blanket of cold air. Even the lava, which was deep within the chasms, was cooling. The ripples continued forming around the iceberg. The alarming cold air was still moving quickly, even though it was at such a low temperature. The trees, which were uprooted from the ground due to the earthquakes, all started turning into ice crystals, glittering all over on the ground. As the cold ripples propagated throughout the island with an alarming speed, similar scenes could be seen everywhere. No! Xia was completely frightened. This coldness is too abnormal and far too heavy. I'd say it can even beat the polar ice flame martial arts spirit of Baimingshang. The cold air is gushing out from the iceberg. What could possibly be in that iceberg? Crayak. By now, the iceberg was almost completely destroyed. At the same time, numerous small ice cones started forming on the ground. In less than a minute, these cones turned into some strange type of ice demon beasts, which were shaped like leopards. These demons were each 3 to 5 meters long, their bodies all flashing in the bright sunlight, creating a very serene atmosphere. It did not take the beasts much time to gather into a group of more than 100. These ice demon beasts, though looking deprived of life, glinted blindingly under the sunlight and would pounce down upon the humans nearby once they came into form. More frighteningly, these ice demon beasts were even 10 times colder than the air ripples. There was a nip in the air as each ice leopard leaped up, and the air seemed to freeze wherever they passed, making a strange muffled sound. The iceberg kept cracking open, with more and more ice demon beasts shooting out. Sunlight trembled on them, and among the warriors of the 4 powers there came noises of fierce fighting. The ravines also glittered with crystal light, as if the icebergs down there were also producing something. Finally, the cracking of the earth ended. By this time, 100,000 demon beasts had come into being, shooting up out of the ground like a swarm of locusts. Shi stood watching the hair-raising scene dumbfounded. He cursed. Where did these ice demon beasts come from? I can only sense strong cold air in them, and not the slightest sign of life. What the hell is going on? Move. There are too many of them for us to resist. The beasts carry with them an overpowering coldness. Let's run away. Xia exclaimed after checking the beasts with her soul consciousness, her face grave and nervous. Far away, some warriors from the 4 powers were besieged by the ice demon beasts. Strangely enough, the attacks they launched did not seem to do anything, not even being strong enough to wound the beasts' bodies. Warriors began to be ripped to pieces by the beasts, their bodies a wretched sight to behold. Faced with such a horrible situation, Dongfang He, Chen Duo, Gu Jianga, and the others were thrown into a panic. Who would care about the secrets of the iceberg at this moment? Thus the experts from the 4 big groups fled like the wind, one after another. Seeing that even the strong guys of the 4 powers had chosen to run for their lives, there was no ground for Shi to linger. Therefore, in a great haste, he retreated with Xia. The ice demon beasts did not only look like leopards, they moved with the same agility and speed. Running wildly in this iceland, the beasts outran many warriors of the earth rank. The straggling warriors near Shi, who had also stayed away from the iceberg, were now seized by terror, shrieking and running desperately. It's the ice beasts! The ice beasts! I've seen them on an ancient scroll. These are 100% ice beasts controlled by the cold ice flame. Some distance away, an elder warrior shouted like crazy, his face covered with terror. At the 3rd sky of Disaster Realm, he seemed more intent on shouting rather than running, and the gap between him and the leopard beasts quickly shortened. Soon his figure was lost in a sea of ice beasts. Bitter cries reverberated in the sky above the area where the elder warrior had shouted. Shi felt his heart throb. His face dropped, and he hastened his steps. The name of the ice beasts registered something in Xia mind, and her delicate body giving a shudder that compounded the hint of terror just crossing her eyes. Frightened, she cried out, "Follow me, Shi, quickly." He obeyed without hesitation. Suddenly, several forms whizzed past above their heads. Shi looked up, almost by reflex, and found that the high-ranking warriors of the four powers were flying towards the gate of the Monroe Island in anguish, and, in their hands, they were clutching as many of their fellow men as possible. Gu Jianga was grabbed by the sky-rank warrior of the Dongfang clan in one hand, and around his body colorful lights glowed. The moment Shi Yan raised his head, Gu was also looking down at him. Shi Yan snorted and immediately bent his head, quickly catching up with Xia Xinyan. The girl stopped abruptly before a dead volcano, some 4,000 or 5,000 meters away from the icebergs. The green ring on her finger glittered, and out came a silver awl. Xia Xinyan instilled her profound qi into the small gadget. The awl emitted glaring silver lights that drilled hard into the stone of the dead volcano. In a minute, the rocks were crushed, and crumbs of stone were blown out into the air around them. A few moments later, a deep hole was dug out. Xia Xinyan went into the hole without hesitation and motioned for Shi Yan to come along. Shi Yan looked back, only to be threatened by the sight of countless ice beasts streaming to all directions like tides. He caught a glimpse of the dead corpses of many warriors that had been ripped open by the beasts. Meanwhile, some 10-odd ice beasts, without the slightest signs of life, were rushing to this cave with overwhelming coldness. Shi Yan immediately felt seized by the cold air, and, without further delay, he rushed into the cave. At this moment, Xia Xinyan was holding the silver awl, working at the stones ahead. She lifted planks of stones that had been drilled off, shouting at Shi Yan in a commanding tone of voice, "Come, give me a hand. Block up the hole." Without thinking, Shi Yan rushed over and picked up a few rocks the size of a millstone and carried them to the entrance to the cave. Under their concerted efforts, over 10 rocks were carried out of the cave to the entrance. Then tightly they blocked the hole, leaving not a crack for light to come in. But the two dared not to have a respite. Amid Xia Xinyan's tender but powerful orders, Shi Yan carried on with the rocks. In a few minutes, the two of them made it to as deep as 30 meters into the cave, leaving 100 rocks behind them to block the entrance. Bang! Bang! Violent knocks came from the entrance, suggesting that the ice beasts had found their way to the cavern and were now trying to barge into it by force. However, the rocks that stood between the entrance to Xia and Shi's current spot amounted to at least 3,000. Among them, even the smallest was as big as a stone stool. With so many rocks, even the ice beasts found it a challenge to break through the entrance. However, these beasts did not abandon hope until half an hour later, when the booming noises at the entrance finally subsided. "I think we are safe for now." Wiping the sweat from her forehead, Xia Xinyan let out a soft sigh, and then uncovered her veil. The delicate cheeks were gleaming with a sheen of sweat. If it not had been for the luminous stone Xia Xinyan had with her, then, being this deep in the cave, the two would have been troubled by the lack of light. Xia Xinyan seemed fatigued. After storing the small all away, she gasped a bit, then sat down on the ground, smiling bitterly. "We've really had a tough time." "The ice beasts?" That old guy shouted the name before he died. "I saw you were surprised at that moment. Do you know anything about these beasts?" After seating himself next to the girl, Shi Yan asked with knitted eyebrows. Xia Xinyan nodded her head slowly, if not reluctantly, her face solemn and gloomy. "I think I finally know why this volcanic island has that iceberg." "Why?" "The ice. There's cold ice flame in it." "Cold ice flame?" Shi Yan's face was filled with confusion. Why is this flame so devastating? "The sky fire." Xia Xinyan took a deep breath and then went on to explain, "You should know about the 3 kinds of fire: sky, earth, and mortal, right?" "Sure. First, the mortal fire. We humans are born with it, and practically a kind of martial spirits. The polar ice flame martial spirit of the Baiming clan is an example. And then the earth fire. It's deep down in the volcanoes 1,000,000 years old, and it's a flame with frightening power, but no life. It can be used to make pills and weapons. Absolutely horrible. And lastly, there's sky fire. It's a flame that has existed since the earth and the heavens were made, and is the most powerful of the 3 kinds, 'cause it's alive and has consciousness. A living wonder in the world. I heard that it can beat the mortal fire and earth fire in a blink of an eye and carries a disastrous power. Serene asked. You are right. Xia Xinyan nodded and cleared up. Among the three fires, the mortal fire is the least powerful, then comes the earth fire, followed by the most dreadful sky fire. The iceberg. I guess it contains exactly one subdivision of the sky fire, the cold ice flame. The finest cold flame in the heavens and the earth. It is alive, and wherever it goes, the land will be covered with vast icebergs and irresistible cold air. The cold ice flame? Serene was bemused, but why would this flame appear on this island? It's sealed here. Xia gave the question a thoughtful moment before she once again answered. It is said that strong warriors above the god rank can absorb the sky fire into the soul for their own use, thus obtaining an invincible power. However, it's easier said than done. The sky fire is not born for people to absorb. To integrate into your soul, you need not only a basic rank of god, but also every kind of the rarest materials. Above all, you need to captivate the sky fire first. I assume the difficulty is beyond our imagination. Has anyone ever succeeded in absorbing the sky fire? Well, during the tens of thousands of years of the Endless Sea's history, myriad legends have told about powerful warriors who had made an attempt at this grand ambition. But all of the stories ended up tragic, with the warriors being eaten up by the sky fire, their bodies and souls destroyed. One thing to remember, once the sky fire gets incorporated into the human soul, the owner's soul consciousness will be as powerful as the fire itself. Unconquerable among all the same-level warriors. A warrior of the first sky of spirit god realm once absorbs the sky fire successfully can literally beat all powerful warriors of the second and third sky of the same realm. The latter does not stand a chance in front of him and can even be killed in a second. Killed in a second? You heard it right, killed in a second. Xia Xinyan's eyes dropped, and her voice quivered. As the legend goes, once the soul consciousness absorbs the sky fire, it will undergo a mutation. But about mutation, nobody knows. The soul consciousness becomes extremely horrible, able to burn the opponents in a second. And to destroy one's spirit and soul? Only a breeze is needed. Then answer my previous question. Has anyone ever succeeded? Yes. In the record of the Endless Sea, there seem to be two warriors who made it. One is of the spirit god realm, and the other true god realm. They carried the world before them, and all the same-level warriors trembled at their feet. They dominated their realms. Then, the cold ice flame, how did it end up sealed under this volcano? Is it the result of someone trying to tame the flame with the volcano's energy? So someone tried to absorb the cold ice flame? Serene blurted out excitedly. Should be. But it seemed that whoever did this must have failed. Xia Xinyan nodded. Dash. Edited by Jimmy, Vic, and Eli. Chapter 141. The Iceberg Seals the Island. Chapter 141. The Iceberg Seals the Island. Serene and Xia Xinyan had been in the cave for 3 days. These past 3 days, even being inside the cave, they felt colder and colder as the temperature outside was becoming lower and lower. The cold ice flame was a type of sky fire. When the heavens and earth first came into existence, the cold ice flame already was around. It had its own consciousness, and it was an extremely special form of life in this world. The Menluo Island was covered with volcanoes. The God Realm warrior, in an effort to try to merge the cold ice flame into his sea of knowledge, used the volcanoes on Menluo Island to try and constrain it. But for some reason, he ultimately failed. The cold ice flame had been sealed ever since then. Those floating symbols, which they had seen inside the iceberg, were one of the constraints on the cold ice flame. After tens of thousands of years, the power of the seal had slowly declined. The cold ice flame continuously ate away at the constraint, and finally poked out from the bottom of the sea and appeared on Menluo Island. The people from the four forces wanted to obtain the secrets of the iceberg, so they kept bombarding and striking the iceberg. This made the already weakened constraining power even weaker, and ultimately let the cold ice flame escape. It formed into thousands of ice beasts, which were now roaming Menluo Island, making this land of volcanoes into a hell on Earth. The cold ice flame was a sky fire. Unless a God Realm warrior came by, it would be very hard to seal a sky fire. Once the warriors from the four forces realized that it was a sky fire that hid in the iceberg, without hesitation, they immediately escaped from the iceberg, using their fastest speed to get off the island. The ice beasts were made from the cold energy of the cold ice flame. On Menluo Island, the ice beasts were always being empowered with a steady stream of the cold ice flame's cold energy. This cold energy made the ice beasts as hard as iron and gave them incredibly fast reflexes. There was also a large quantity of these ice beasts, which made it impossible for the four forces to defend against them, so they had to retreat. Xia Xinyan knew about the power of the ice beasts. To prevent getting trampled by the ice beasts, she immediately dug out a cave and hid inside to avoid being attacked by the ice beasts. It had been 3 days. The cold energy outside slowly got stronger. Menluo Island had fallen completely silent, as if all the ice beasts had vanished from this place. Ice beasts are formed from the cold ice flame. After Menluo Island becomes lifeless, the power of the ice beasts would be reclaimed by the cold ice flame. According to the amount of time which has passed, there should be no more ice beasts on Menluo Island. Xia Xinyan furrowed her brow slightly and pondered for a moment, then said, "We can go out and take a look. Maybe we can find an opportunity to leave the island." Once the warriors from the four forces escape, they will definitely deliver the news about this place at once. By that time, there surely would be God Realm Masters, who covet for the cold ice flame, come to Menluo Island from all directions. Once the God Realm Masters are here, the Menluo Island would definitely become even more of a mess. It is definitely time for us to leave. Shuryen nodded. After 4 days of recovery and being under the effect of the immortal martial spirit, Shuryen had returned to his peak physical state. After going through this disaster, Shuryen's state of mind seemed to change again. On the verge of life and death, he gained more insight to life and seemed to feel a breakthrough was coming. The disaster realm required one to go through different kinds of challenges in order to gain enough insight to break through and stepping into a new realm. While having enough vigorous profound qi, having insight was more important. Without enough understanding, even if there was enough profound qi, it would be hard to progress any further. This perilous event was actually highly beneficial to both him and Xia Xinyan. The two worked together to clear away the rocks blocking the cave, slowly approaching the cave exit. After a short while, the last few remaining rocks were moved aside, and the two walked out of the cave. Right after they got out of the cave, their faces immediately changed, and their expression changed into that of shock. Under the moonlight, the world of ice surrounding them glittered like glass. Everything had formed into thick layers of hard ice, and the ground was covered with a freezing layer of ice that was a couple of meters thick. Penetrating cold energy filled this world. The cold energy was like a white fog, slowly floating above the earth. The two were in a place covered with ice and snow, and there was not a spot where greenery could be seen. The entire Menluo Island had been turned upside down. The neighboring extinct volcanoes became ice mountains, standing tall and dazzled brightly under the moonlight, giving them a dreamlike aura. In the far distance, all the warriors were preserved in their running poses. But they were frozen into ice sculptures, their deaths forever commemorated by the ice encasing them. Because of the existence of the cold ice flame, Menluo Island seemed to have turned into an ancient iceberg. Ice and frozen rocks were present everywhere. Spreading their consciousness out, they discovered there was not a single trace of life. The ice beasts also completely disappeared, turning into lifelike-looking ice sculptures. All the people on Menluo Island probably froze to death. This time, it's really hell on earth. Xia Xinyan sighed. The warriors of the four forces broke the constraints that sealed the cold ice flame because they wanted to know the secrets of the iceberg. In the end, they let the cold ice flame escape its seal and let the entirety of Menluo Island, and the people living in it, be sealed in the ice. It's truly sad. Shuryen's expression was cold, and he lightly said, "I wonder how many warriors from the four forces escaped from this disaster. I really hope they also died under the cold ice flame. The Sky Realm Masters are extremely fast." The people they brought were probably able to escape the disaster. The Heaven-like divine world has many powerful secret treasures, so that Saintess Chu Yanqing and her group should have also been able to escape. But the unimportant people probably also died in Menluo Island. The ones who were not brought along by the Sky Realm Masters would have been very unlikely to stay alive if they didn't hide in a cave like we did. Crack, crack, crack. An extinct volcano a few thousand meters away suddenly cracked open. Beautiful figures slowly poked their heads out of the broken cave opening. The one in the lead was that saintess from the Heaven-like divine land, Chu Yanqing. Behind Chu Yanqing, a row of beautiful women from the Heaven-like divine land were all looked stunned. They were shocked by the bizarre changes to Menluo Island. Xia Xinyan frowned and quietly put her veil back on. It seems that we weren't the only smart ones. They should have also known about how to hide from the ice beasts, and they also have secret treasures that could instantly create a cave. I knew this woman wouldn't die easily. Chu Yanqing stood elegantly in the distance. Her face was emotionless. She was wearing a snow-white palace gown. The look in her eyes was cold. She gazed 1,000 meters away at Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan, seeming curious as to how they managed to survive. Chu Yanqing gazed in their direction for a moment. Then she quietly instructed the few beautiful women beside her. After that, Shi Yan saw 2 Earth Realm women slowly walking their way. These 2 women had arrogant expressions, and their fair faces were cold as ice, almost as icy as Menluo Island was at the moment. These 2 women looked to be about 30-something years old. They had long legs and were quite tall. They both had narrow eyes with thin eyebrows and hair down to their shoulders. With their thin waists, they took elegant little steps. The 2 women slightly raised their heads. Their expressions were cold. After coming this way, one of the women said lightly, "Our saintess wishes to see you too. Follow us." Then, the 2 women only glanced indifferently at Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan. Then they turned around arrogantly, as if getting greeted by Chu Yanqing was a blessing to them. Xia Xinyan's bright eyes were filled with rage, and she snorted quietly. Shi Yan slightly furrowed his brows and said indifferently, "They are quite full of themselves, aren't they?" Those 2 women seemed to have heard noises behind them. Their narrow eyes were filled with anger as they both turned around to look at Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan. The one that talked first shouted with a cold face, "What are you whispering about?" "Nothing." Xia Xinyan responded lightly. She pulled on Shi Yan's clothes, signaling him not to do or say anything. She slightly lowered her head and dragged Shi Yan along with her. Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan followed the 2 women from Heaven-like divine land and soon arrived beside Chu Yanqing. Chu Yanqing's long hair was done up in a high bun, and her looks weren't outstanding. But those eyes were like clear water, giving people a chilly feeling. She stood there frowning, while she looked at Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan. Then she said lightly, "When did you get out? Did you find anyone else on the island? Did you see any strange things?" Shi Yan composed himself and shook his head. "We just got out too, and we know nothing about the situation on Menluo Island now." Chu Yanqing looked at Shi Yan deeply. She pondered for a moment, and then commanded, "You two, go take a look at where the iceberg is exposed. If you find anything, just come back and tell me, and I will give each of you a profound level weapon as a reward. Go." Where the iceberg was exposed was where the cold ice flame was sealed. It was very likely that the cold ice flame was hiding deep underground. If they went to roam around that area and got discovered by the cold ice flame, they would be dead for sure. There would be no chance for them to turn the situation around. The people from the Heaven-like divine land didn't have the guts to take the risk and look for themselves, but wanted Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan to go check it out for them and most likely die. This was truly arrogant and extremely cruel. "Sorry, we managed to stay alive this long, and we don't want to go die." Shi Yan scowled and shook his head firmly. "We will be leaving Menluo Island now. Unfortunately, we won't have the chance to get acquainted with your profound level weapons." Chu Yanqing furrowed her brows, slightly revealing her annoyance. "Boy, no matter what you want, you will have to go." A beautiful, curvy, large-breasted Nirvana realm woman, with a cold expression and icy cold eyes said, "If you don't go right now, then we will kill you right now." Shi Yan's face changed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Piercing sounds came from the distance. A moment later, you could see Chen Duo alone, and that old woman from the Dongfang family holding Dongfang He in one hand and Gu Jianga in another. They quickly flew in from the outside of Menluo Island. Gu Jianga owned the dragon-slaying sword. The sword sealed the demon beast Hornless Fire Dragon, and the Hornless Fire Dragon was a fire demon beast. Therefore, it had a special restraining effect on cold things and icy environments. He had brought it along this time. This group included 4 people. Chen Duo and that old lady were both in the Sky Realm, Dongfang He was in the Nirvana Realm, and Gu Jianga was in the Disaster Realm. The 4 already sent out the news and were waiting for aid to come. But they also worried that there would be changes in the cold ice flame and that there might be mysterious treasures in the iceberg. So after the ice beasts all disappeared, they came back out of greed. "Hey!" Dongfang He exclaimed and instructed that old lady. The old lady landed with Dongfang He and Gu Jianga and stood beside Chu Yanqing. Chen Duo looked down and also flew down from the sky, landing steadily behind Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan. "Zhao Rong, what is it?" Chen Duo landed. He glanced at that cold-faced, beautiful woman from Heaven Lake Divine Land that was threatening Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan and asked lightly. "We wanted these 2 to go and take a look at the situation, but they don't seem to want to cooperate." When facing Chen Duo, Zhao Rong's expression was no longer cold and arrogant. Instead, she put up a flirty smile. "Well, I was just negotiating with them." I didn't know that you guys would come too." After Chen Duo and the rest heard her words, they simultaneously frowned and looked at Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan unhappily. Chapter 142, Seize the Body. Chapter 142, Seize the Body. Shi Yan's heart sank and he cursed in his mind. If it were only the people from the Heaven Lake Divine Land, as long as Xia Xinyan used her reincarnation martial spirit, they had nothing to be fear. However, once the people from the Magical Wonderland, the Gu family, and the Dongfang family got here, Xia Xinyan wouldn't be able to do anything even if she used her reincarnation martial spirit. The Kiara Sea, where the Yang family and the Xia family lived, was not on good terms with the Heaven Lake Divine Land and Magical Wonderland from the Black Sea, nor with the Gu and Dongfang families from the Hangguo Sea. It would be fine if they didn't reveal their identities, but once their identities were revealed, without any powerful warriors by their sides, the possibility that they would be killed would skyrocket. Once Chen Duo and Dongfang He landed, Shi Yan knew that they were going to be forced to go to the iceberg, against their will. Indeed. Negotiate? Dongfang He was the first to speak. He sneered and shouted, "You two, if you don't want to die, go take a look at the situation immediately. Or else we will kill you right away." The woman can be spared temporarily, but we'll make her suffer a life worse than death. Do you understand me? Dongfang He grimly looked at Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan. As his eyes glimpsed at Xia Xinyan, the look in them showed a hint of lust. Shi Yan scowled. He hated Dongfang He from the bottom of his heart. Especially the way this old guy looked at Xia Xinyan. It made Shi Yan want to turn him into dust. Gu Jianga didn't say anything. He shook his head and sighed, his face full of helplessness. But in his eyes, there were also some malicious lights gleaming as he quietly looked at Xia Xinyan's body. "Stop wasting time." Chen Duo furrowed his brows and spoke with a deep voice. "I'll count to 3. After that, the man will die and the woman will wish she were dead. Let's go." Xia Xinyan lowered her head. She pulled on Shi Yan's clothes and forcibly dragged Shi Yan towards the place where the iceberg was originally revealed. Shi Yan scowled. He didn't say a thing. He lowered his head and followed her towards that iceberg. Dongfang He and the rest all harshly stared at their backs. The look in their eyes was sinister, and sneers lingered on the corners of their lips. If Shi Yan and Xia Xinyan showed any uncooperative actions, these people would mercilessly attack and kill the 2 of them immediately. The 4 forces suffered severe losses this time, especially the Magical Wonderland and the Dongfang family, in which many of their warriors were frozen to death. On the surrounding ships, before the powerful warriors of these two forces had time to dodge, they were already shredded to pieces by the ice beasts. Right now, these people were filled with unreleased anger. If Shiryan and Xia Xinyan didn't have any use to them, the two of them would have been killed by Dongfeng He on the spot. The closer they got to the iceberg, the colder the surrounding temperature became. It became chilled to the bone. The original tip of the iceberg had already disappeared. In its place was an enormous hole. Inside the hole, the cold energy was chilling. Wisps of freezing white mist filled the air. Inside, faintly they were able to see the light emitted by the ice crystals. Ka-ka! That was a sound of Xia Xinyan white teeth clattering as frost appeared in her hair. While moving, she had to continuously stir the profound qi in her body to defend against the cold energy that came from that hole. On the other hand, Shiryan didn't seem to be affected that much. Only in the disaster realm, he quietly used his profound qi and didn't feel too stiff in his body. You seem to be able to handle the cold energy here? Xia Xinyan's teeth clattered as she looked at Shiryan. Her beautiful eyes were full of surprise. A while ago when I was cultivating, I accidentally absorbed a portion of the cold energy. The cold energy merged into my body. Here, I really don't feel that cold. Shiryan nodded. Xia Xinyan was stunned, and her expression was mixed. If cold energy was absorbed into your body, how can you still move freely? Your body should have gotten stiff, and you should have been turned into ice, like the rest. I don't know either. Shiryan hesitated for a moment, and then said, "The skill I'm cultivating is very strange. Although it is accompanied by tremendous pain and danger, it does have many mysterious and beneficial aspects, which is why I still cannot give it up." Xia Xinyan lightly nodded and sighed in her mind, but said no more. "One day, I will make them pay with blood." Shiryan grinned. "After we go through this, there will be plenty of opportunities to take care of them. A little impatience spoils great plans. Be careful, when we arrive at the opening of the hole, I will immediately use the reincarnation martial spirit and take you to fly away from here. We only need to stay a short distance away from them, then it should be no problem for me to take you and leave." "Okay." Shiryan nodded. He turned back and looked 2,000 meters away at Chenduo, Dongfeng He, and the rest, a cold look in his eyes. With a distance of 2,000 meters, as long as Xia Xinyan abruptly activated her reincarnation martial spirit, those people definitely wouldn't be able to react fast enough. This was also why Xia Xinyan didn't act on the spot. Instead, she chose to take the risk and come this way. From the opening of the hole, cold energy spread out in all directions, and a white mist filled the air. 10 meters away from the hole, Xia Xinyan was trembling from the cold, but Shiryan seemed to be unaffected. "I'll go take a look, only one look, then I'll come back." Shiryan stood next to the hole, and, staring towards the hole, he suddenly spoke up. For some reason, the closer he got to that hole, the more comfortable Shiryan felt. The penetrating cold energy that others felt not only didn't make him feel uncomfortable, but also gave his body a refreshing, enjoyable feeling. Especially, the cold energy that came from inside the hole, it made Shiryan feel even more sharp, and his body wasn't affected much. The cold energy in the hole overflowed and slowly poured out the side. Some cold energy moved and fell towards Shiryan. Shiryan's blood ran cold, but it felt very comfortable, as if the blood in his body really liked the cold energy here. Shiryan was stunned. He hesitated for a moment and then tried to stir the second sky of rampage and merge the negative powers in his body into his blood. Unexpectedly, from inside the hole, massive amounts of cold energy suddenly flew out. That cold energy came without any warning, as if it was attracted by Shiryan. It suddenly rushed out of the hole and came straight at Shiryan. "Shiryan!" Xia Xinyan exclaimed. Her eyes were filled with panic. "The cold energy is too strong. I won't be able to hold it anymore. I'll go further, you should back up." Shiryan didn't hesitate at all. He suddenly started stepping towards that hole. With every step he took, the cold energy on him became stronger. And the cold energy from the hole also rushed towards him faster. Xia Xinyan was stunned. The cold energy ahead of them was so strong that, even as an Earth Realm warrior, she still couldn't handle it. But Shiryen was not only fine, he was actually gathering the cold energy. This bewildered her, not knowing whether or not she should urge Shiryen to leave this place. Wait a moment for me. Shiryen walked step by step towards the hole, his expression turning more and more serious. He said with a deep voice, "Stay away from me. Please don't come near me." Massive amounts of cold energy endlessly flowed out of the hole like smoke and crazily rushed into Shiryen's body. Suddenly, beams of bright light came from inside the cave. A flow of extremely weird life force suddenly spread out of the hole. Xia Xianyan was aghast, and she screamed, "Shiryen! Get back here right now. The cold ice flame is showing signs of activity. Leave quickly." In the distance, Chen Duo's face changed. His body suddenly floated in the sky, and he watched, in astonishment, as Shiryen walking towards the hole. That old lady from the Dongfang family also rose into the sky, staring into the distance. She said to Dongfang He, Gu Jianga, and the rest below, "That kid is walking towards the hole. A massive amount of cold energy is flowing out of the hole, but that kid seems to be fine. His body seems to be absorbing the cold energy." Absorbing cold energy. Dongfeng He exclaimed, "Are you sure? The cold energy released by the cold ice flame is bone-chilling, even to me. That kid should have been frozen into ice. How is he still moving? His body is really absorbing cold energy." Chen Duo took in a deep breath. He said with a strange expression, This kind of phenomenon. What?" Gu Jianga and Chu Yanqing all looked at him. They couldn't help but exclaim. The cold ice flame has chosen him to be the carrier. It should be attempting to seize his body. Chen Duo's expression changed repeatedly. He urgently said, "The cold ice flame is only in the fire form. Although it has a life consciousness, it has no solid body. A sky fire without a solid body is easy to control and seal. But once the sky fire obtains a fitting carrier, its life consciousness will seize the soul of the carrier. Then it will become like a warrior and able to utilize more power and use soul attacks. How could that person be the target of seizing?" Chu Yanqing exclaimed, "Isn't it that only people with the ice body martial spirit can be the seizing target for the cold ice flame? Normal people can't handle the cold energy of the cold ice flame at all. Once they touch it, they will be frozen to death and won't be of use anymore." "I don't know either." Chen Duo shook his head. Once the cold ice flame successfully seizes him and obtains a solid body, then even the God Realm warriors of the Endless Sea won't be able to rein it in. If that were the case, not only did we work for nothing, none of us will get out of here alive. We have to kill him." Dongfang He immediately understood the meaning in Chen Duo's words. Let's do it. If the cold ice flame chose him to be the seizing target, then it definitely knows that he can handle the cold energy. You've said it before, that kid's body can absorb cold energy, then this can't be wrong. Yes, we have to kill him immediately. Chen Duo nodded, and the little silver hammer in his sleeve immediately flew out. In the rumbling thunder, that hammer fiercely struck at Shiryen, who was standing at the opening of the hole. Here Dongfang He and the rest almost had no hesitation. They all performed their own attacks. Now Gu Jianga also stopped pretending to be nice. He lightly shouted, and the dragon-slaying sword around his neck flew out. The hornless fire dragon appeared, and turned into a 100-meter-long fire dragon, fiercely throwing itself at Shiryen. "Shiryen! Come back!" Xia Xinyan suddenly started screaming. Her voice almost came with a sob. "Come back. I remember now. You're not scared of cold energy. That is the perfect carrier it wants to seize. The cold ice flame wants to seize your body." Shiryen was still enjoying the cold energy flowing into his body. When he heard Xia Xinyan scream like that, he finally realized something was wrong. He was just ready to leave, but he suddenly realized the cold energy in his body was stirring. Inside the hole, an enormous consciousness rushed out like a jackal, and the most vigorous cold energy tightly wrapped him up. That consciousness was extremely dark and evil. It suddenly appeared and immediately rushed into his mind, with the intention of immediately taking his soul. In the distance, waves of attacks from the four forces were still continuously coming this way. Shiryan's head was in extreme pain. He held his head and roared. With red eyes, he roared fiercely, "You go first. Leave me alone." Then, Shiryen used the rest of his power and pushed himself backwards, his body falling straight down the seemingly bottomless hole. Once Shiryen's body was in the hole, the cold energy in the hole quickly swirled and instantly formed into thick hard ice. The hard ice was like a giant door, standing right at the opening of the hole, sealing it completely. "No!" Xia Xinyan screamed. Boom, boom, boom. The different attacks from the four forces endlessly fell on the opening of the hole, but couldn't shatter the hole. Qin and the rest were all grim-faced. They quickly rushed here from afar. Xia Xinyan clenched her teeth. Her eyes were filled with hatred. She suddenly activated her reincarnation martial spirit and flew straight up into the sky. Xia Xinyan's figure quickly flew towards outside Menluo Island, but her hateful voice still came from afar. "You all killed him. Just wait for the revenge from the Yang and Xia families." Chapter 143, Immortal Island. Chapter 143, Immortal Island. The reincarnation martial spirit. Qin Duo's face suddenly changed. He shouted in surprise and blankly watched Xia Xinyan turned into a beam of green light, quickly disappearing into the distant sky. Dongfeng He and Gu Jianga's faces suddenly became grim. Xu Yanqing deeply furrowed her brows and sighed quietly, looking a little stressed out. "Jianga, didn't you say that this girl's background was unknown?" Dongfeng He's face was cold. He glared at Gu Jianga. "Great. She's actually the Xia family's girl. If she died here it would have been okay, but since she left alive, the Xia family will definitely bring trouble to us." Qin Duo took in a deep breath, his face full of fear. The Xia family is bad enough, but the Yang family. When he mentioned the Yang family, the people from the four forces all turned livid, their expressions becoming ugly. You all know clearly about the Yang family's arrogance and ruthlessness. In the Endless Sea, even when people didn't mess with them, these lunatics were already stirring trouble all around. If someone accidentally messed with their people, giving them the excuse they needed, they would kill the entire family, leaving no one behind. If the Yang family really decides to stand up about this, then our four forces will really suffer a lot. Qin Duo sighed. When he was talking Shiryen and Xia Xinyan before, Qin Duo was cocky and arrogant, as if he wasn't afraid of anyone in the world. Now that the Yang family was mentioned, he started sighing in despair. It was as if he messed with demons or beasts or something. He became a coward right away. Although the Yang family and the Xia family are allies, the Yang family is the leader, so they usually won't bother with the Xia family's business. Xu Yanqing was silent for a moment, then she suddenly said, "Why did she say that the Yang family would make a move?" Reasonably, other than when something big happens to the Xia family, the Yang family wouldn't care at all about the Xia family. "That kid," Dongfeng He gasped, then he suddenly said, "Could that kid be someone from the Yang family?" Upon hearing those words, everyone was frightened, their faces all becoming livid. If he's really from the Yang family, how could there be no strong warriors accompanying him? All the talented ones from the young generation of the Yang family are extremely arrogant. They don't know the definition of forbearance at all. If that kid is from the Yang family, with how we treated him, he definitely wouldn't have been that obedient. He would have definitely used his soul to send out the news and immediately battled with us. Qin Duo shook his head. The powerful warriors from the young generation of the Yang family all knew the skill of soul messaging. Even when they were out alone, rarely would any forces dare to try killing one of the young masters from the Yang family. Because once the Yang family's young man realized his situation was unfavorable, he would immediately use the soul skill to convey his situation. If something were to happen, the Yang family would definitely be able to know who did it. The Yang family's vindictive nature was famous in the entire Endless Sea. If their descendants were to be killed by someone, then that force would have been absolutely killed off, and the entire faction would have been removed from the Endless Sea. And because of that, Even when the young members of the Yang family were out and moving about by themselves, if one couldn't guarantee that they could instantly kill him, not giving them any chances to use soul messaging. Even enemies of the Yang family wouldn't dare to act rashly. They feared revenge from the Yang family. Let's hope he's not from the Yang family, or else us four forces will have to prepare for a bloody war. Xu Yanqing sighed distantly. He got dragged into the hole by the cold ice flame. He's probably going to be seized by the cold ice flame. Once the cold ice flame obtains its target, it will complete the seizing of the body on the spot. And during that time, the power of the cold ice flame would greatly decrease. This is the best time to attack. Dongfang, he furrowed his brows. He pondered for a moment, then said, "We should try to attack it." Everyone slowly nodded. Soon, a group of people arrived at the opening of the hole. The people of the four forces joined together and attempted to break the ice covering the hole. Different kinds of attacks came, one after another, as they tried to break the ice covering the hole. But the ice was as hard as iron. No matter how these people used their strength, they couldn't break open through the ice. After 3 days, the cold energy on Menluo Island started slowly dissipating. The ice rocks on the island started to melt. After half a month, the iceberg could no longer be seen on Menluo Island. The icy energy that covered the island had disappeared without a trace, and the volcanoes, which had been heavily suppressed, had become active and begun to spray out lava. The cold ice flame is no longer on Menluo Island. Chenduo, suspended in midair quietly, felt around and shook his head with a sigh. It has obtained its carrier, so it will definitely leave through the bottom of the ocean, preparing to find a place to completely seize the body. Once it leaves, the cold energy on Menluo Island will disappear with it. Now, even if aid comes our way, it would probably be very hard to find the cold ice flame. The lives of Skyfires are different than ours. If they hide their presence, even if a God Realm warrior was nearby, it would still be hard for them to sense it. It seems that we came for nothing this time. We even messed with the Xia and Yang families, such horrible luck. Dongfang, he smiled bitterly, clenched his fists together, and said, "We will be going now. If you want, you can keep searching. We will be leaving too." Once the people from the four forces found that the cold energy had disappeared from Menluo Island, they realized that the cold ice flame had certainly left a long while ago. Knowing that it would be very hard to find the cold ice flame again, they didn't waste any more time and left Menluo Island one after another. Half a year later, the Immortal Island in the Kiara Sea of the Endless Sea. Kiara Sea was one of the 5 seas of the Endless Sea. Inside there were thousands of different-sized islands. The biggest and most famous would be the Immortal Island. It was the main island of the Yang family. In the Kiara Sea, or even the entire Endless Sea in general, the Immortal Island was seen as a magical place. On the island, there were hundreds of different-sized mountains. Every one of them was filled with spirit energy, and they had many magical treasures and ingredients. There were no ordinary people on the Immortal Island. They were all warriors of the Yang family. Yang family warriors lived on every mountain. There were hundreds and thousands of different constraints on the island, and on the outer perimeter of the island, there were guards watching all day and night. Other than Yang family members or close allies of the Yang family, it would be hard for anyone to step into Immortal Island. The Immortal Island was the holy land of the Kiara Sea. Every once in a while, the dozens of warrior forces in the Kiara Sea would need to come to Immortal Island to offer up their resources, and leaders of the different forces would need to report their current situations. If the Kiara Sea were a country, then the dozens of warrior forces would be like lords, and the Immortal Island would be the imperial city of the Kiara Sea. The Yang family was the dominating force in the Kiara Sea. Even though the evil Wonderland and the Xia family held some power in the Kiara Sea, everybody knew that the Yang family was the true ruler of the Kiara Sea. Even the people from the evil Wonderland and the Xia family agreed to this saying. Because of the existence of the Yang family, the warriors of Kiara Sea walked proudly in all the big seas. When they talk about themselves belonging to the Kiara Sea, they felt very proud of themselves. In the other seas, the Yang family was famous for its warlike and arrogant nature. Over hundreds of years, in order to extend the land of the Kiara Sea, the Yang family fought wars everywhere. They made the neighboring areas miserable. It was as if they could never take a break. In the countless fights, the Yang family members always served as the leading troops. Every fight, the Yang family members took the lead and made bloody conquests. Whether it be the Hangluo Sea from the northwest or the Black Sea from the northeast, they have all been the targets of the Yang family's conquest. Even the Sky Sea in the southeast were often attacked by the Yang family. In the past hundreds of years, the Yang family had, indeed, created enemies everywhere, but they stood firm and never fell. Instead, their territory expanded more and more, and the family's power also became greater and greater. The strong power of the Yang family was evident. On this day, in a corner of the Immortal Island, a small boat slowly approached. On the boat, there was a slim and graceful woman. She wore a veil, and there was a slight hint of sadness in her bright eyes. She slowly stood up. Whoosh! In the sky above the boat, there was a sudden flash of light, and a shadow covered with black armor abruptly appeared on a giant rock near the boat. This person was covered with heavy armor, holding a black spear, and had fierce eyes. He looked at the woman and said, "Who are you?" "Xia Xinyan from the Xia family." The woman swept aside the sadness in her heart and spoke with an indifferent tone, "I come with news about the Shura King Xiaohani." "Wait for a moment." The black-armored guard frowned. He took out a black horn and quietly reported to that horn. In a short moment, the black-armored guard's expression slightly changed. He said, "Master Mo wants to see you." Xia Xinyan nodded. "Master Mo and Master Xiao have fought together for many years. I am just going to explain the situation to Master Mo." "Please." The black-armored guard waved his hand, and a beam of lightning suddenly flashed in the air, opening a little trail in the thick rocks behind him. Xia Xinyan lowered her head and sailed the boat through that trail, quickly arriving at the Immortal Island. On the top of a mountain, which was tens of thousands of feet high, there was a haggard middle-aged scholar. From time to time he frowned and looked into the skyline. He stroked a piece of white beast bone in his hand, as if thinking about something. On the mountain, there was only a simple little hut and a strange oval-shaped magic circle. After a short moment, a bright light flashed, and Xia Xinyan's figure appeared in the magic circle. The leader of the three Shura kings, Mo Duanhuan, was still staring up at the sky. Without even turning his head back, he said dismissively, "Girl, I heard you have news about Xiao." "Greetings, Master Mo." Xia Xinyan bowed, and then thoroughly told him about their disastrous encounters in that sea. As Xia Xinyan was talking, Mo Duanhuan started frowning deeply. When Xia Xinyan finished talking, he finally shook his head and sighed, "Whereas young Master Yan? Why didn't I see him?" Sure, Yan also got in trouble. Xia Xinyan clenched her teeth and answered bravely, "Got in trouble?" Mo Duanhuan's mouth cracked open and revealed a mouthful of pale white teeth. What happened? The four forces of the magical wonderland, the Heaven Lake Divine Land, the Dongfang family, and the Gu family, forced us to enter the hole of the cold ice flame. Shuryan's body got seized by the cold ice flame and was dragged into the hole. His whereabouts are unknown. Xia Xinyan lowered her head. Her eyes began to water up, and she started to sob. The magical wonderland, the Heaven Lake Divine Land, the Dongfang family, and the Gu family. Mo Duanhuan nodded one after another, and said lightly, "I will report it to the head of the family. This is the Yang family's issue. Your Xia family doesn't need to partake in it. Here is a nutrition pill. You may keep it." Master Mo, Shuryan, and I encountered the disaster together. Even if the Xia family doesn't wish to participate, I personally want to be of service. Xia Xinyan took the nutrition pill and spoke while clenching her teeth. Mo Duanhuan was slightly surprised. He stared at her for a moment and finally nodded, "Do whatever you want." Chapter 144. Sealed in Ice for 3 years. Chapter 144. Sealed in Ice for 3 years. The Tuansua Archipelago at the southwest corner of the Hangluo Sea. The Tuansua Archipelago had 36 islands. although it had many islands, but this Tiansua archipelago was barren, without any valuable mines or any treasures. There were many islands in the Tiansua archipelago, but not a lot of warriors. This was a relatively remote area in the Hanglio Sea, whether it be the Three God sect, the Dongfang family, or the Gu family. Usually they rarely cared about this area. A boat that hoisted the flag of the sun, moon, and stars slowly sailed in the Tiansua archipelago. The boat wasn't big, it was only 20 meters long, and there were all types of messy cargo piled up on this boat. More than a dozen of Three Gods sect disciples were standing on the deck, looking bored to death. These people were all in the nascent and disaster realms. On this trip, they accepted a task of shipping the resources on the boat to the Gu family. Linda was the little leader of this team. She was in the first sky of the disaster realm. She looked like she was around 25 or 26, bright and beautiful. She wore a normal gray religious uniform from the Three Gods sect, with the sun, moon, and stars pattern embroidered on the shoulders. The religious uniform was quite tight. It outlined the curves in her body perfectly. Her chestnut-colored hair was tied with a purple ribbon. They were very long and dragged all the way up to her plump butt. When she walked, her long hair flew in the air and then lightly hit her butt, leaving room for imagination. On the little boat, all the male disciples from the Three Gods sect were scattered in all the corners, but they often secretly peeked at Linda and quietly gulped. They weren't the Corel disciples of the Three Gods sect. These people didn't have the sun, moon, and star martial spirits of the Three Gods sect on them. They all used to be disciples that belonged to some small forces in Hanglio Sea. But because the forces pledged allegiance to the Three Gods sect, they became the outer disciples of the Three Gods sect. Without the sun, moon, and star martial spirits, they would never be counted as core disciples of the Three Gods sect. So even when they were counted as people from the Three Gods sect, they only had roles as errand boys, doing some minor things for the Three Gods sect. Linda was 25 years old, but she was in the first sky of disaster realm. Her potential was clearly very outstanding. Unfortunately, she didn't have the sun, moon, and star martial spirits on her. Even when her capability was extraordinary, she still couldn't get the approval of the Three Gods sect. She could only become a small leader of the outer disciples, doing some cargo shipping errands. Linda had always worked hard, in the hopes that one day she would have accumulated enough contributions to earn the qualification to go under intense cultivation in the Three Gods sect for once. Only those outer disciples with outstanding contributions could obtain the qualification to go under intense cultivation in the headquarters. If they perform outstandingly during the intense cultivation, then they have a very slim chance of becoming a central disciple without the sun, moon, and star martial spirits. Then, they could further learn and cultivate the advanced martial skills in the Three Gods sect with the assistance of the Three Gods sect. Thunk! The boat suddenly shook heavily as it touched some floating object under the sea. Linda's pretty face slightly shifted. She was a little surprised inside. She had been to the Tiansua archipelago area more than once, but never once had she bumped into a hidden coral reef. This time the shake in the boat made her very perplexed. She raised her hand and pointed at a human realm third sky warrior and said, "Carmen, you go down and take a look. See if we hit a hidden reef." Hidden reef? Carmen continuously shook his head. "Impossible. When I came, my father told me there are no hidden reefs in the Tiansua archipelago. There are also no profound or strong warriors here, or else it wouldn't be a small team like us carrying the things to the Gu family." Linda's slim long eyes slightly squinted. She said lightly, "I told you to go down and take a look, not to hear your bullshit." Carmen grinned and repeatedly shook his head. "Fine, I'll go down." "Linda, don't be so mean. When you let out a command, how can I dare to disobey?" Laughing, Carmen shouted with a deep voice and headed straight into the sea. In a mere moment, Carmen poked his head out of the sea. While shivering, he screamed, "There are icebergs under the sea. Giant icebergs. They're everywhere. It's cold. It's so cold." Carmen urgently paddled in the sea, using all his strength to climb towards the boat. He kept shouting in shock. Outboat hit the top of two icebergs and got stuck. Ah, it's so cold. It's so cold. Carmen's face almost turned white. He rushed onto the boat, with a face full of disbelief. I can't believe it. How are there icebergs existing under here? I've came here to this Tiansua archipelago a few times, and I've never seen such a thing. On the boat, everyone was surprised and discussing about this. Iceberg? How could there be icebergs? Linda's face was also full of surprise. She kept shaking her head. Every time she shook her head, the ponytail behind her head swung repeatedly and kept hitting on her plump and round bottom. It made crisp snap-snap sounds, making people distracted, and they couldn't help but imagine some fantasies. Who the hell knows? Carmen stood behind Linda. He clenched his teeth and shivered. But his eyes were closely staring at Linda's, but the look in his eyes was fierce. I'll go down to take a look. Linda pondered for a moment, and without notifying everyone, her delicate body leaped as she went under the sea. Under the sea, the icebergs were like mountains in the seabed. Roughly counting, there were probably more than 10 of them. You couldn't see the bottom of those icebergs. Their roots seemed to have dug into 100,000 feet deep into sea. The iceberg stood straight in the blue sea water. Cold energy was spreading around everywhere, and between the icebergs there seemed to be a murky liquid connecting them. That liquid was very icy, and the cold energy under the sea came mostly from that liquid. Linda's delicate body shivered. She too was slightly unable to stand against the cold energy under the sea. But she toughened up and dove dozens of meters under, carefully avoiding the murky liquid between the icebergs and moving through the icebergs. Ah! Linda suddenly covered her mouth, but her pretty face was still full of shock and disbelief. She blankly looked at the biggest iceberg. The iceberg was clear as crystal and transparent. In the biggest iceberg, there was showing a vaguely, slightly, blurry shadow. It was a man. He was completely naked, with cold energy wreathed all over his body, and you couldn't make out his face. He seemed like an ice sculpture that had been sealed for many years, hiding in the biggest iceberg. Linda's felt shortness of breath, and she immediately jumped out of the sea. Her delicate body shivered as she boarded the ship. She looked like she was in a trance. All the clothes on her body were wet, and Linda's curves were completely revealed. Her waist, butt, chest, and abdomen were vaguely visible. All the warriors on the boat had a spark in their eyes. They looked at her lustfully and secretly gulped. Linda seemed as if she didn't notice. She was drowned in the enormous shock. She blankly stood there, and many different thoughts flashed through her mind continuously. Not mistaken. I was definitely not mistaken. Linda clenched her teeth and was sure that she definitely saw a completely naked young man in the biggest iceberg. That man seemed to be sealed in the ice. He had no trace of life, but his entire body was covered by cold energy. In the barren Tiansua archipelago, there were suddenly appeared more than 10 icebergs that seemed to have existed for tens of thousands of years. In the biggest iceberg, there was even a naked man covered by cold energy. Linda's thoughts slowly became clear, and her eyes suddenly brightened. She realized that this discovery might just make her gather enough contributions. This contribution might even make her into a core disciple in the Three God sect, letting her cultivate the most advanced, mysterious, and magical martial skills in the Three God sect. Taking in a deep breath, Linda said, "This ship is stuck. Later you guys can try and see if you can get it out of the crack of the icebergs. If you really can't, then I will use the backup boat to leave first and to go to a nearby island to find a big ship and transfer the cargo on the boat." She didn't intend to share his discoveries with others. She already had the thought of using a little ship to get away and quickly report the news in the place. This contribution, she wanted to have it all by herself. All right, we'll try. Carmen nodded. The group started to move around, trying to move the boat away. Linda smiled indifferently. You guys go ahead. I'll go down to change into some clean clothes. Then, Linda immediately left, without helping these people move the boat. Under the sea. In the biggest iceberg. In Shurian's 720 meridians all around his body, the different negative energies continuously moved. The different countless negative emotions of fear, anger, hate, and desperation rushed into his mind and battled with the foreign soul that poured inside. The negative emotions kept defending against the seizing attack from the foreign soul in his mind. At the same time, from inside of the blood vein ring, different violent, murderous, and devastating soul attacks also rushed out. It combined with the negative emotions in his meridians to confront the foreign soul in his mind. It had been 3 years. 3 years ago, Shuryen was dragged to the bottom of the sea by the cold ice flame. Brought by the power of the cold ice flame, he went into the depth of the sea and crossed through tens of thousands of miles of sea and reached all the way here. Here, the cold ice flame tried to seize his soul. The evil and invasive consciousness of the cold ice flame almost attacked Shuryen until his soul had vanished. At the crucial moment, the negative emotions in his 726 meridians ragingly rushed out like a river bursting at its banks and battled against the consciousness of the cold ice flame. At the same time, the blood vein ring also let out violent, murderous, and devastating attacks. Working together with the negative power in his meridians, together they helped Shuryen defend against the evil consciousness of the cold ice flame. 3 years. He battled hard for 3 whole years. In these 3 years, Shuryen had to fight with the cold ice flame for hundreds of times every day. He used different kinds of negative powers and the violent, murderous, and devastating soul powers released from inside the blood vein ring. They formed into layers of soul barriers and bombarded the consciousness of the cold ice flame, blocking off the invasive consciousness let out by the cold ice flame. After fighting hard for 3 years, the cold ice flame still couldn't complete seize his body. Instead, over the course of 3 years, Shuryen's body already completely adapted to the cold ice flame and got used to the different soul-killing attacks. His knowledge and use of the negative emotions and soul power also rose to a new level. And during the soul battle, he unconsciously stepped into the second sky of the disaster realm. On this day, the consciousness of the cold ice flame, after 3 years of long-term attack in order to seize the body, finally seemed to have started to compromise. After battling hard for 3 years, the cold ice flame was tired too. The strain on the soul power was too big, and it started to become powerless. Shuryen, after having been extremely tense, was afraid to loosen up even in the tiniest bit. He suddenly realized that the consciousness of the cold ice flame was slowly slipping out of his mind, trying to leave his body. Shuryen sighed in relief. In the hard fight over these 3 years, he knew more than anyone how terrifying the cold ice flame was. Once he saw that the cold ice flame was going to leave his body, the joy in Shuryen's heart was truly indescribable. However, when the consciousness of the cold ice flame was just leaving Shuryen's mind, the blood vein ring on Shuryen's finger suddenly bursted in light. A mystical ancient presence suddenly came from inside the blood vein ring. The blood vein ring turned into a giant swirl, and different kinds of violent, murderous, and devastating evil powers kept rippling inside the blood vein ring, forming into a strong, fierce suction power. Once the cold ice flame left Shuryen's mind, the blood vein ring actually started to fight back. Chapter 145, Saved. Chapter 145, Saved. The power of massacre, violence, and destruction pervaded in the blood vein ring and formed an invisible black hole. The negative emotions, which dominated Shuryen's brain, were now, with all the negative energy, rushing into the blood vein ring, which gained more power to devour. Shuryen even felt that at that moment, the blood vein ring could devour the world. The consciousness of the ice-cold flame panicked for the first time and tried to go back to Shuryen's brain. At the same time, the power of devouring in the blood vein ring at once doubled. The ice-cold flame inside Shuryen began to fear and tried to escape from Shuryen's body. However, its power was getting stronger and stronger. Furthermore, inside Shuryen's blood, his heart power, 3 pearls, and profound chi were all out of control. Their energy went straight into the blood vein ring. At that moment, the blood vein ring became a devouring force, dragging all of Shuryen's energy out. Shiryen was stunned by it. The blood vein ring was like a black hole that couldn't be filled, dragging all of his energy into it. With that supplement, the power of devouring that was produced by the blood vein ring surged several times. The consciousness of the ice-cold flame fiercely struggled to escape from Shiryen's body, but it couldn't help but get devoured by the blood vein ring. No! 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 Messages came from the ice-cold flame, which showed that the ice-cold flame was literally frightened. Shiryen could feel it clearly. Under the constraint of the blood vein ring, the ice-cold flame's struggle became weaker and weaker. Finally, the consciousness of the ice-cold flame was entirely swallowed by the blood vein ring. Thousands of cold light spots sparkled out from the dozens of glaciers, and they kept penetrating into the blood vein ring. These thousands of cold light spots were the energy from the ice-cold flame, which connected seawater and formed those glaciers. Now the consciousness of the ice-cold flame was in the blood vein ring. And the cold air, being influenced by it, also flew into the blood vein ring. Silently, dozens of glaciers melted. Without the cold air from the ice-cold flame, those glaciers melted back into seawater. Only in the area around Shiryen, those glaciers were melting slower because of those light spots. Half an hour later, all the light spots were devoured by the blood vein ring and became a part of it. Shiryen was exhausted. The power of star in his heart dissipated. The Een pearls in 3 meridians also vanished. The negative energy in all meridians disappeared too. All his profound chi was gone. At that moment, Shiryen was completely exhausted. All sorts of energy and refined profound chi was entirely devoured by the blood vein ring. In his mind, a weak wisp of spirit power was still trying to trigger the spirit power. Shiryen's spirit tried to sink deep into the blood vein ring. A ball of silver flame flew out from inside the blood vein ring and gave out ice flakes as it tried to rush out from the ring. However, there was a huge swirl outside the flame, which blocked the flame from coming out of the ring. Wisps of cool air were sent out from the blood vein ring. Shiryen withdrew his spirit and watched intently, only to find that on the surface of the blood vein ring, a pattern of the flame occurred which was as big as a grain of rice. The ice-cold flame was devoured by the blood vein ring, and there appeared patterns of flame on the surface of the blood vein ring, but Shiryen couldn't figure out what it was. Cool air came from the blood vein ring, and Shiryen's body felt rather refreshed. The glacier disappeared, and Shiryen's naked body slowly floated up to the sea surface. After measuring the martial spirit, Shiryen carefully tried to accept natural energy, only to find that immortal martial spirit, petrification martial spirit, and star martial spirit were still inside him. And when he triggered the natural energy, he could acutely feel the vibration of it. His body had no changes, and he was still at the second sky of disaster realm, only his energy was forcefully absorbed by the blood vein ring. Profound chi could recover, star power could be gathered by star martial spirit, Een pearls could find dense Een chi, and the negative power could also be regained. Shiryen didn't worry at all, as he could recover as long as he had enough time. Linda! 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 Carmen shouted on the deck, "It's okay now, the ship can move." Wearing a clean gown, Linda was drying her hair with a towel. As she walked up the stair, she frowned. "Carmen, what are you shouting at?" "Okay now, we can move the ship." Carmen giggled, "We can continue the trip." "Huh?" Linda was surprised and rushed to the deck in an instant, and then jumped into the sea. When she first went into the sea, she found the ship was blocked between the glaciers and that it was impossible to move the ship in such short time. Pooh! As soon as she jumped into the sea, Linda's expression changed. Dozens of glaciers all disappeared. Linda thought her eyes were blurred, thus she rubbed her eyes and watched carefully. Still no sign of them. Not even one glacier. What happened just now seemed like an illusion. She would have believed that her eyes were blurred if it was only her who saw the scene. But Carmen also saw the incredible scene at the bottom of the sea. Both of couldn't be blind. Linda's expressions shifted, and she swam further to figure out what happened. Just then, a naked young man was swimming up from the bottom of the sea, and he looked as if he was hurt. Linda just glanced at him and immediately shouted out. She was dumbstruck as she stared at Shiryen. Then she hurried to move to the ship. She was afraid. Shiryen was joyful when he saw a beautiful woman in the sea, as he thought he would be saved. But he never thought that that woman would be frightened and ran away in fear. Shiryen felt his body become heavier, so he could only pretend to be kind and gentle. Linda had just got out of the water, and she took a deep breath of the fresh air, then looked into the sea in fear. Shiryen looked so friendly that he kept waving at her with smiles. Linda was stunned, as she stared at Shiryen with complicated expressions. Shiryen's body started sinking, but the blood vein ring kept his mind lucid. Seeing Shiryen sinking, Linda hesitated. After a while, she jumped into the sea again. Shiryen was naked, with his waving down the water. Linda cursed secretly, and she did not dare to looking down upon Shiryen's lower part. She moved forward and approached Shiryen soon. Seeing Linda coming near, Shiryen jumped to her at once and showed a friendly smile. But he was naked, and he was hugging Linda, so it made her blush at once. Linda struggled and got rid of Shiryen's hug, and she angrily stared at him. Then she grabbed his left arm and dragged him toward the sea surface. Shiryen sighed to himself and had to obey Linda, so he let her carry him to the sea surface. Linda moved her legs up and down in the water like a beautiful fish. Shiryen cast his eyes on Linda, who was beside him, and praised secretly. Pooh! Linda finally popped out from the water. Beside her, Shiryen also showed his head, as he smiled and said in a weak voice, "Thanks." Linda grunted and said to Carmen in a blush, "Throw a shirt to me." Who is this guy? Jesus. Pervert. Why are you naked? Damn, he is leaning onto Linda. I have never done that during so many years. Bastard, stay away from Linda, or don't blame us for being rude. On the ship, many warriors began to curse after they saw a naked man leaning against Linda. Carmen. Linda yelled in embarrassment. Got you. Carmen looked rigid as he found a broken shirt and threw it into the sea. Chapter 146. Lying Low. Chapter 146. Laying Low. Sponsored by Friends Favor. Hengluo Sea, Tiansua Archipelago. A boat containing some mixed cargo was slowly sailing in the sea. On one big boxes among that cargo mess, Shiryen was comfortably lying on his side. He was dressed in patched clothes and his expression was dull. Cameron and the rest were all either standing or sitting at different corners of the boat. They all looked at Shiryen with hostility. After Linda boarded the boat, she kept sneezing. Now she was already in a room downstairs to change into new clothes. She didn't have time to talk with Shiryen. Once Linda went away, Carmen made a move first. He threw the weak Shiryen into this pile of cargo and stood on the side, while looking at him coldly. Those people on the side were all gnashing their teeth together. They all secretly cursed in their minds. They wanted to beat Shiryen up and brutally teach him a lesson. On this boat, Linda was the object of admiration for these young men. For these guys, Linda was definitely in the topics they talked about every night. In these people's hearts, Linda was the soul of this boat. Shiryen was completely naked, and Linda actually held his hand to rescue him out of the sea. In the view of these people, Shiryen undoubtedly tainted Linda's purity. Even if Linda's purity were to be tainted, it should have been by one of them. How could it have been passed on to a stranger? These people all secretly cursed, and of course their looks towards Shiryen was unfriendly. Especially Carmen, he was full of anger at the moment. He clenched his teeth and sneered. Kid, you really know how to play, huh? Stripping naked and bathing in this iceberg is sure fun, isn't it? Is there something wrong with you? Why didn't you drown in the seawater? Shiryen frowned. His expression was indifferent, and he didn't answer. Why were you in the sea? If you don't answer, I'll throw you back right now. Carmen was mad. He suddenly stood up and stepped toward Shiryen. He said fiercely. At the moment, Shiryen's different powers in his body were all absorbed by the blood vein ring. He was really like an ordinary mortal. If he were to fight with Carmen, he would definitely have been seeking his own demise. I'm from an island in this area. When I was out fishing, my boat broke, and I was washed here by the sea water. Shiryen was full of lies. He kept smiling bitterly. I thought I would be dead for sure, but I didn't expect that beautiful girl would suddenly appear, and I was finally rescued. Kid, why were you completely naked? This was what Carmen was most annoyed about. With us fishermen, our clothes are more loose. When the seawater rushes, it comes off very easily. Shiryen frowned. He said in frustration, I don't know what happened either. I was unconscious for a while, and when I woke up I was already like this. Bullshit. Carmen, bitterly, kicked at Shiryen. Fishermen clothes are loose. Are their underwear loose too? Carmen kicked Shiryen again. He said while gritting his teeth, I think you just want to take advantage of my Linda, and you stripped yourself naked on purpose. You shameless bitch, if I don't teach you a lesson, you'll never speak the truth. Who is your Linda? Linda's voice came from the stairway. Soon, after changing into a set of dry clothes, Linda slowly appeared, while wiping her wet hair. She glared at Carmen with an unfriendly look and shouted, Who told you to hit him? Carmen was somewhat guilty, so he chuckled dryly, I was just teaching him a lesson for you. This guy was all naked, he's definitely a pervert. Linda, I don't mean to blame you, but this kind of guy shouldn't be saved. You should have just let him drown. Doesn't he like to expose himself? Then we ought to let the demon beasts under the sea fuck him. Linda frowned and said in disdain, Carmen, you're so disgusting. Carmen's face was all innocent as he smiled wryly, It's for your own good. Move away, I have something to ask him. Linda snorted. She impatiently walked forward and glared at Carmen. Move. Under her stare, Carmen couldn't do anything. He dropped his head and went to stand with the warriors at the other corner of the boat, looking towards in their direction from afar. Carmen, you got the short end of the stick? Sister Linda is really tough, and you said you can tame her. I think there's no hope for you in a lifetime. Carmen, Sister Linda isn't someone that's soft-hearted. Why would she rescue that kid this time? Could it be that Sister Linda has been single for so long that she wants a man? Bullshit. Carmen cursed out. He stared at that person ferociously. Even if Linda were to want a man, she would go for someone like me. That kid is as worthy as shit. He doesn't even have a wisp of profound chi in him. He's just a wussy. How could he be worthy enough to be Linda's man? Fuck. You people, are your brains grown on your dicks? Dumbass. The warriors cursed on by Carmen were all in the first sky or second sky of the human realm, but Carmen was at the peak of the third sky of human realm. Even when they were cursed by Carmen, they were too scared to go against him, so they could only smile apologetically. On this boat, Linda was undoubtedly the strongest, and after her was Carmen. After Carmen cursed out, he felt more and more annoyed inside. He looked at Shiryen coldly, and he realized that Linda was squatting down, actually leaning very close to Shiryen. The more he watched, the more he disliked this, and he was filled with rage inside. Linda was squatting, with her back to Carmen and the rest. She reached out her slim hand and laid it on Shiryen's pulse. After checking it out for a while, she finally said, You are a warrior, but the power inside you is completely used up, is that right? Shiryen nodded. He smiled. Thank you for your rescue, or else I would have sunk to the bottom of the sea. Who exactly are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Linda took back her hand. She brushed back her chestnut-colored hair and said while breathing out fragrant breath. To prevent others from hearing her conversation with Shiryen, Linda was very close to Shiryen. While she talked, the fragrance in between her lips slowly released out and came towards Shiryen's nose and mouth. Of course, Linda's looks were not as good as Xiaoxinyan. She could only be the same level as Di Yalin, but she could still be counted as a rare beauty. With a beautiful girl breathing fragrant breath on his face, of course Shiryen didn't dislike it. But his lips were tightly sealed, and he said lightly, I just told Carmen I am a fisherman from a nearby island. Because my ship was destroyed by the hurricane when I was fishing, and without noticing I was washed here by the seawater. Really? Linda looked at him deeply. She was obviously unconvinced. Shiryen nodded in certainty. That's it. Linda frowned and became quiet. Shiryen was frozen in the biggest iceberg, the scene. Nobody else, but she saw it. Someone who could be frozen in 100 feet deep iceberg was definitely not any ordinary person. Linda knew this clearly in her heart. Seeing that Serene insisted that he was a fisherman, Linda knew that Serene was lying. While knowing that Serene was lying, she still could do nothing about it. She was hesitating on how to uncover Serene's secret. All right, then you are a fisherman. Linda hesitated for a second and thought that she should still take it slow. She said lightly, "No matter where you were before, we still won't change direction just for you. On this trip we will be going to the Goof family's island. The resources on this boat are all to be shipped to the Goof family's island, and we won't stop just for you." The Goof family? Serene dazed, and then exclaimed, "You mean the Goof family that has the Sword Mountain?" You. As if discovering something, Serene looked at the sun, moon, and star flag on the boat and shouted, "You are from the Three Gods sect. Pretend, just keep pretending." Linda frowned. She sneered in her mind, but on the outside she remained unmoved and indifferent. She nodded and said, "That's right, we are people from the Three Gods sect. But we are only outer disciples, and we only do some small errands for the sect. The cargo on this boat is sent by the Three Gods sect for the Goof family. In these 2 years, the Yang family made the Goof family miserable. Many defenses on the island were directly destroyed, so they had to purchase some defensive crystals from our Three Gods sect." The Yang family made the Goof family miserable? Serene dazed for a moment. This time he was really surprised. Linda quietly observed Serene, seeing that he revealed a curious expression. She then continued to explain, "I don't know how the Goof family, the Dongfang family, the people from the magical wonderland, and the Heaven Lake Divine Land offended that arrogant and unreasonable Yang family. In the last 2 years, the strong warriors from the Yang family went out everywhere. They uprooted many islands of the Four Forces, killing many people from the Four Forces. The Yang family is notoriously arrogant in the Endless Sea, and this time they seem to be justifying it by making the Four Forces suffer unspeakably." Linda frowned and secretly observed Serene. She slowly described the fight between the Yang family and the Four Forces. Serene's face was sullen, his eyes flashed in pleasant surprise. What happened in the end, at that Menluo Island, was only seen by the Four Forces and Xia Xinyan. The Four Forces don't know his identity at all, so they certainly wouldn't gossip about anything. The news that the Yang family got had to be from Xia Xinyan. Although when he fell into the hole, he guessed that using the reincarnation martial spirit, Xia Xinyan should have been okay. But in these 3 years, he was still a little worried about her. Now that he got the news from Linda's mouth, he was really relieved inside. He suddenly felt like a big stone had been dropped from his heart, and he became very relaxed. The Yang family is truly strong. Serene took in a deep breath, but his expression was quite serious. He purposely said with the common hatred, "The Yang family really is arrogant." The Yang family is that strong. Linda's expression was indifferent, although the Four Forces are also in the 15 forces of the Endless Sea. But compared to the Yang family with their rich heritage, the Four Forces are still slightly inferior. This time they seem to be on the wrong, and the Yang family got a hold on them. No wonder they are suffering so much. Our Three Gods sect shouldn't be scared of the Yang family, right? Serene suddenly said. He pretended that he was from the Hangguo Sea, and the root of the Three Gods sect was right at the Hangguo Sea. The status of the Three Gods sect in the Hangguo Sea and the status of the Yang family in the Kiara Sea was about the same. Putting himself in the Three Gods sect should be no problem. Indeed, Linda didn't care. She nodded and said, "To be honest, our Three Gods sect used to be a little worse than the Yang family. But now, you can't say for sure in the future." A holy person had returned to our Three Gods sect. After a few decades, our Three Gods sect would definitely surpass the Yang family. By that time, if the Yang family dared to make trouble in our Hangguo Sea again, we'll definitely make them suffer. While saying these words, Linda was clenching her teeth. It seemed that she really disliked the Yang family. Holy person? Serene frowned, a light flashed in his head, and he knew who was the holy person that Linda was talking about. God's Stone Square, the meteor from the sky, Ouyang Luoshuang. Dash. Chapter 147, Hardship. Chapter 147, Hardship. Sponsored by Friend's Favor. Dash. Shi Yan was leaning on one corner of the boat. He was meditating and slowly recovering his profound qi. In order to seal the cold ice flame, his blood vein ring had swallowed all his energy, causing Shi Yan to not have a single drop of power in his body, making him just like Immortal, one who had never cultivated in martial arts. In these past few days, the profound qi in his dantian had already recovered a bit. Quietly circulating his power, Shi Yan was out of worries. He believed that within 10 to 15 days, all his profound qi will be recovered, and it would reach its original state. Every day, all his muscles and bones were getting nurtured by the cold energy, and some wisps of that energy kept on seeping out of the blood vein ring. Most of the cold energy had already seeped into his bones, blood, meridians, and bone marrows. Shi Yan's body was entirely brimming with the cold energy, and his body had become impervious to cold. Most of the cold energy had infused with his blood. Ever since that time, when he had accidentally infused the cold energy with his blood while cultivating in the second sky of Rampage, his blood had changed subtly. Traces of cold energy could be found in his flowing blood. There seemed to be a lot of cold energy hidden in his blood. In these 3 years of his struggle with the cold ice flame, his body had totally adapted to the cold energy. The cold energy inside his body had become a lot more dense in these 3 years. In these 3 years, he didn't dare to relax for a single time. The high tension in his mind and the soul fight with the cold ice flame let him smoothly step into the second sky of the disaster realm. It also made his control over his mind power and soul power to step onto another level. Hiding himself in a corner of the boat, Shi Yan's expression was indifferent. Most of the time, he was intensely cultivating his profound qi. He would also spend some time to understand the change in his state of mind, to repeatedly comb through the experience he gained from these 3 years of soul battle. The process would be very beneficial to his future progress. He realized this point, so he didn't think it was humiliating. What's wrong with staying in this boat? He actually felt glad to be relieved, and he could cultivate intensely all day. Sometimes, Shi Yan would sink his consciousness into the blood vein ring to observe the cold ice flame inside the blood vein ring. He realized that under the reveling of the strange swirl, even when the cold ice flame kept trying to escape the blood vein ring, it still couldn't truly get out of it. Slowly, Shi Yan was reassured. He knew that the blood vein ring was indeed mysterious. It actually managed to suppress one of the sky fires, the cold ice flame. The cold ice flame was one of the sky fires. It was a cold energy flame that existed when the world first opened. Its consciousness was evil and ancient, and its life was extraordinary. If someone could wipe away the dominant consciousness of the cold ice flame and merge it into a sea of knowledge, it would completely change that person's sea of knowledge, causing a mutation to form in the sea of knowledge, and he will become an invincible strong warrior in the same level as his. Shi Yan had this thought. Unfortunately, only Nirvana realm warriors could really form a sea of knowledge. The sea of knowledge has infinite magical effects. With it you could perform many amazing feats. Without the sea of knowledge, it would be extremely hard to merge with the cold ice flame, and his body might be seized by the cold ice flame instead. In order to merge with the cold ice flame, other than forming a sea of knowledge, you also need to gather 9 extremely hot yang-powered treasures and materials. With these 9 treasures and materials, you have to refine the evil consciousness of the cold ice flame until it was nearly dying, and then use this opportunity to merge with it. The sea of knowledge and the treasures were both absolutely necessary. Without completing these 2 steps, Shi Yan wouldn't dare to act rashly. Through these 3 years of soul battling, it gave him a deep understanding as to how terrifying the cold ice flame was. If it weren't for that he had many negative emotions in his meridians and the magical aid from the blood vein ring, he probably wouldn't last 3 days. He would have been successfully seized by the cold ice flame. The sun went down, the moon and the stars slowly hung up on the night sky. The stars dotted the sky, Wisps of star power invisible to the naked eye quietly flushed down from the sky. They were all absorbed by the pores on Shiryan's body and then gathered at the star martial spirit in his heart. The star martial spirit absorbed some of the star power. There were spots of starlight sparkling at his head again, and Shiryan once again felt the existence of the scattered star power. Raising his head, Shiryan stared at the starry night sky. Shiryan's expression was cold. A vindictive curve showed up on the corners of his lips. Qin Duo, Chuyanqing, Dongfang He, Gu Jianga. These 4 names went through his heart one by none. Shiryan's eyes became colder and colder. Faint cold energy also seemed to be flowing off from his body. In the last moment at Menluo Island, these 4 people attacked together and joined forces in order to kill him. When his body fell into the hole, he saw the many attacks released from them. If the cold ice flame didn't place a block of ice at the hole opening, he definitely would have perished under the attacks from those 4, leaving no trace of him. Especially Dongfang He and Gu Jianga, they dared to have lustful thoughts about Xia Xinyan. This made Shiryan hate them even more. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Linda's chestnut-colored hair waved and lightly hit on her plump butt as she suddenly came up from the bottom of the boat. In the night, Linda's beautiful eyes were bright. She gazed into the distance on the deck and said lightly, "Everyone be careful, we are about to leave Tiansua Archipelago. I heard that there are demon beasts spotted in this area, so pay full attention." On the deck, the dozen or more warriors were all yawning. They seemed to be in poor spirits. Although that Carmen often bothered Shiryan during these 2 days, but because of Linda's protection, he didn't really find a chance to make a move. Now that he heard Linda say there were demon beasts spotted nearby, Carmen actually stood right up and shouted, "Everyone pay attention. Linda said there are demon beasts nearby, then there definitely are. Linda's been through this route for many times. Everyone stop sleeping, get up, get up." Carmen shouted and walked around on the deck, kicking the bleary-eyed warriors awake. Carmen shouted and slowly came to Shiryan's area. He glimpsed at Shiryan and shouted coldly, "You get up too." While talking, Carmen's foot kicked this way. When he was kicking the others, he had controlled his power, and he didn't use much strength. But the foot he was lifting towards Shiryan now was extremely powerful. Even though it was slow, but it was unusually powerful. Shiryan slightly squinted his eyes. He immediately sensed that this kick from Carmen contained a lot of profound qi. If any ordinary person were to really get kicked by that foot, that would definitely cause heavy injuries. Shiryan sneered in his mind. Before Carmen's foot lifted towards him, he suddenly stood up and quickly walked towards Linda. Bang! Carmen's foot kicked this way, but it landed on the big box that Shiryan was leaning on. That big box actually got kicked half a meter backwards from his kick. Shiryan's face turned sullen. He stood aside and silently looked at Carmen. The surrounding warriors all secretly jeered at this. They were all a little surprised, but they didn't dare to say more. Carmen's foot had obviously been added with profound qi, or else that box wouldn't have shifted backwards for half a meter. These warriors all knew that inside the boxes there was heavy profound granite, and every piece was much heavier than normal rocks. Carmen was able to kick the big box like this with his one foot. If it really were to fall on Shiryan, Shiryan's bones would have probably get shattered from the kick. "Carmen, what do you think you're doing?" Linda also noticed the abnormality here. Her pretty face changed, and she shouted angrily, "Do you want to murder someone? How did Shiryan offend you? Did you have to strike with such force?" "I didn't." Carmen shrugged and said casually, "Shiryan is also a warrior. Even though he's mediocre, he still should be able to handle my kick. I was just testing to see what realm he is really in. This kick of mine won't kill him. We are still a long way from Cloud Island anyway, so if he were to really get hurt, he can just obediently heal his injuries. This guy's background is unknown. It's best for us if he is unable to move. Or else we don't know if he might do something harmful to us, am I right?" Carmen looked at the surrounding warriors and shouted, "This guy's background is unknown, and we're having a task. Letting a guy like this to stay on the boat, is it better if he were injured and unable to move, or if he's alive and kicking?" Under his watch, the surrounding warriors all had different expressions. Those who had good relationships with Carmen all lightly nodded. And those who believe in Linda didn't make any comments, they only looked at Linda. How is his background unknown? Linda snickered. Didn't he say that he is a fisherman on a nearby island? If he were really a fisherman on a nearby island, why don't you just send him to whatever island around here? There are boats that come and go on these islands. He can totally just go on another boat to go back. Why does he have to latch onto our boat? Carmen sneered. He wasn't someone with no brain. Through his observations lately, he already saw that when Linda was treating Shiryen, she seemed to have some other ideas. He didn't know that Linda was trying to dig out Shiryen's secrets bit by bit. He only thought that she was attracted to Shiryen, and he felt jealous. That was why this whole mess was happening. He wants to go experience Cloud Island. Is that not okay? Linda's pretty face was starting to look bad. She threw her hair to the side and squinted at the warriors on the boat. She said coldly, "Are you guys unclear about the current situation? Do you know who is the person in charge on this task? Do you know who does this boat belong to? If you don't want to work anymore, when the task is over, you all can leave my boat." Sister Linda calmed down. "Whatever you say, we all listen to you." "Yes, Sister Linda, we didn't refute you in any way. Sister Linda, I've followed you for so many years. Wherever you go, I'll go. Please don't ever kick me out." Many warriors who leaned towards Linda all smiled to express their loyalty. Even those who originally felt inadvisable also put up a bitter face and begged for mercy when they saw that Linda got mad. Linda was quite respectable in the outer disciples of the Three God sect. Linda's family was also very strong out of the many powers that belonged to the Three God sect. Plus, Linda herself had an outstanding potential. She could very possibly become a central disciple in the Three God sect. Because of that, in these people's eyes, Linda was a much bigger deal than Carmen. Although normally Linda was gentle, but once she gets mad, absolutely no one dared to go against her. Even Carmen, when he saw that Linda was mad, he smiled wryly. For a kid with unknown backgrounds, is it worth going through so much trouble? You stay put. Linda threw a cold glare at him and shouted, "Pay full attention. Be aware of demon beasts." Splash! 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 At this moment, on the water surface ahead of them, water splashed everywhere. Dark shadows quickly swam under the seawater and rushed towards the boat from all directions. There really are demon beasts. Linda's pretty face changed. She couldn't help but scream, "Everyone be careful. It's also my first time encountering demon beasts here." Shiryen frowned. He gazed into the sea. His expression was indifferent, but he was not nervous at all. Dash. Chapter 148. Expert? Chapter 148 Expert. Green scale beasts were common demon beasts in the Hangluo Sea. Their body was covered with green scales and they had tusks. They could jump out of the sea quickly and were capable of swift attack like arrows. Green scale beasts were not high-level demon beasts in the sea, as they were almost at level 2, 3, or 4. Only a few of them could reach level 5. Green scale beasts had no demon crystals in them, and their green scales were of no value. Only the green moonstones in their brains glittered with greenish light and made people calm. Beside its function to soothe people, green moonstone was usually made into accessories as it produced green light. Since green scale beasts were at low levels, warriors on the Tiansua Islands usually hunted green scale beasts to gain green moonstones and earn some money from it by trading it with traders. As more and more green scale beasts were killed, their hatred for human warriors grew madly, and these amicable green scale beasts started becoming more aggressive. Thus they started attacking trade ships. Several green scale beasts were swimming beside the ship, and their green scales could be seen clearly. Some green scale beasts even showed their scales up over the water surface. Shoo! Several green scale beasts jumped out of the water like arrows and struck to the warriors on the deck. "Kill!" Linda ordered. As Linda began to take action on the deck with her 2 daggers, a net made up of blue sword light appeared in the air. Double snake twist. Linda's arms weaved swiftly, while the daggers flew in the air, and she made the sword light into a double-headed snake which was moving its tongue. 2 level 3 green scale beasts dashed towards Linda, but they got entangled by her double snake twist. The green scale beasts' green scales produced a dull sound, and their heads were hit by the daggers. The 2 green scale beasts were killed by Linda, and their bodies fell directly on the deck. Shoo, shoo, shoo. More green scale beasts appeared from the sea surface, dashing toward those warriors like sharp swords. On the deck, apart from Linda and Carmen, there were another 9 warriors who were at nascent or human realm, no weaker than the green scale beasts. Though those warriors were only exterior disciples of the 3 God sect, they were also from several minor powers attached to the 3 God sect. Thus they had quite a lot battle experiences, which were enough for them to fight the green scale beasts bravely. The warriors on the deck triggered their martial skills. Suddenly, the deck was covered by a light net. Those flying green scale beasts were well rewarded, as they were killed up in the air or hit back to the sea. Before long, after green scale beasts were killed, others returned back into the sea. Green scale beasts didn't dare to attack a second time, nor did they leave the ship, but closely followed it. The group including Carmen cut the green scale beasts on the deck calmly and took out the green moonstones and kicked their remains into the sea. Green scale beasts afar in the sea saw the whole thing and showed deep hatred in their eyes under the moonlight. The green moonstone was as big as a nut, giving out greenish light, which appeared beautiful in the serene moonlight. Linda, do you like these stones? Carmen walked towards Linda with a smile, with green moonstone in his hand, and he asked, "You can have them all if you want." Under the moonlight, Linda looked extremely pretty, and her performance of killing the green scale beasts greatly impressed Serene. Not interested. Linda shook her head. I don't want cheap things. Only those mediocre women love this sort of mediocre stones. After a short pause, Linda added, you can present these green moonstones to other women, and they may reward you other things. So just keep them yourself. Carmen chuckled, well, you don't want them. But why mock me? I don't love general women. Linda didn't respond, but walked towards Serene. She frowned while watching the remaining green scale beasts which were chasing them, and said in worry, hope that level 4 green scale beast won't come. Serene narrowed his eyes, but didn't say anything. Those green scale beasts were at level 3. Level 3 green scale beast equaled to human realm warriors, but as they jumped into the air while fighting, their ability were par up to nascent realm warriors. These exterior disciples of the 3 God sect were almost at nascent and human realm, and Linda was at the first sky of disaster realm, so they could sweep those green scale beasts easily, which was not surprising to Serene. But it was tougher to defend level 4 green scale beasts. Level 4 green scale beasts had harder scales than level 3 ones, which could hardly be hurt by any general attacks. Apart from that, level 4 green scale beasts had sharp tusks, which could even tear the ship deck. If level 4 green scale beasts tore the ship first and then dragged them into the sea, then they could hardly escape. Green scale beasts were much stronger in water than in the air. If the green scale beast damaged their ship, they would definitely die. The warriors on the deck were still celebrating their victory over the green scale beasts, while Linda sighed and started panicking as she stood beside Serene. Serene, do you think we will be attacked by level 4 green scale beasts? Linda sighed as she looked at Serene and asked in panic. Linda saw Serene being frozen inside a glacier in the sea. Though his energy ran out, Linda felt he was extraordinary and smarter than warriors like Carmen. Thus she wanted some advices from Serene. I don't know. Serene shook his head. I know nothing about green scale beasts. What? Linda couldn't believe it. Aren't you a fisherman on the Tiansua Islands? Serene felt awkward as he coughed and said softly, I'm just a common fisherman fishing common fish, not this frightening demon beasts. I can't face this type of demon beast. Only you experts from the 3 God sect can defend them, not me. Linda rolled her eyes to him and complained, just say you don't want to help. Stop mentioning fishermen's. I have never seen any fisherman who looks so stable in front of a green scale beast. The atmosphere turned quite scary when these green scale beasts jumped out of the water, and Linda observed Shiryen when she was fighting against the green scale beasts. She found Shiryen moved to find a safe position without showing any fear. A fisherman wouldn't be so composed. Shiryen smiled. It's not that I don't want help, it's that I'm not able to. But I think the green scale beasts will come again, and there will be several level 4 ones among them. Or those level 3 green scale beasts wouldn't have followed us all the way. Crap. Of course I know they would attack again with some level 4 ones. Linda rolled her eyes and grunted. I'm asking about how to defend them. You are one of us now. You can't do anything either if the ship were to ruin. Didn't you say you want to go to the Clouds Islands? Shiryen forced a smile. We still have some time. Think carefully. If you're an expert, please give us a hand when necessary. Linda looked at him with pleading eyes. After all, I have saved you once. Although my crew don't like you, but I want them to be safe. I will protect them as long as I'm alive. Shiryen was stunned, and he started respecting her. When Carmen was questioning about her leadership, she was still considering them carefully. No wonder the warriors trusted her so much. That's how she maintained her position in the group. And those warriors were lucky to have a leader like her. I'm not an expert. Shiryen mocked himself, just a miserable man who almost died from drowning. Don't count on me. He was not being modest. Before his energy recovered, it was even impossible for him to win over Linda, don't mention protect her. However, if he could regain his power in a short time, it would be a different situation. Never mind. I won't push you. Linda turned cold. You can't survive either if the ship sinks. You would die with us then. So think about it. Then Linda left with a rigid face to those warriors, and she started reminding them about what would happen next. Dash. Chapter 149. Soul Attack. Chapter 149. Soul Attack. Shiryen was casually leaning against a big box and resting with his eyes closed. Inside his body, the profound chi was circulating and slowly recovering. It was late at night. The deck of the boat was shining under the moonlight. On the deck, the group of 11, including Linda, were constantly observing the surroundings. The ship was being chased by large numbers of green-scaled beasts. These dozens of green-scale beasts weren't giving up, and so Linda and the group was constantly on alert. The 11 warriors were scattered throughout the deck, checking high and low, near and afar, for any possibility of an attack from the level 4 green-scale beasts, especially from beneath the ship. The ship was already far from Tiansua Islands, and there were no other islands nearby. If the ship got torn apart by the green-scale beasts, then their whole group would drown. Therefore, they were in no situation to allow even a single scratch to the ship. After fruitlessly questioning Shiryen, Linda no longer bothered with him and started monitoring the surroundings without a care about Shiryen. Though Carmen and several others disliked Shiryen, they didn't bother with him at such a crucial moment. Shiryen seized every moment to recover his profound chi. Another full circulation. Shiryen's profound chi had recovered by half, which when compared to warrior levels would be at the first sky of human realm. Now, even if Cameron wanted to mess with him, Shiryen could easily teach him a lesson. However, it was still not enough to guard against Linda, who was at first sky of disaster realm. Shiryen was getting a little anxious. According to the green-scaled beasts' patterns, their next attack would come shortly. Presence of level 4 green-scaled beasts in the attack was a surety, and Linda's group wasn't capable of handling them. If the ship were to be destroyed, even Shiryen would not survive. Although Shiryen hadn't promised anything to Linda, he was still looking for ways to help her. After a long thought, Shiryen came up with a vicious idea. Once all the warriors on the deck die, he would gather the negative energy from their corpses, enabling him to operate gravitational field, along with Rampage. In that way, he could control the level 4 green-scaled beasts. He was very well aware that, once these two types of forces formed in the gravitational field, he could easily trap the level 4 beasts even if he wouldn't be able to kill them. Without these level 4 beasts, Linda and the group would easily be able to stand against the attack and force the beasts to retreat back into the waters, keeping the ship safe. Yan narrowed his eyes and silently cursed Carmen and his people. Only when you all die will I be able to protect others. With that thought, Yan was prepared for a fight. After a deep breath and another circulation, Yan secretly released the spirit power to test the green scale beasts. Cold air started emitting from the blood vein ring and moved in Yan's body, gushing straight into his bones and flesh. As he was releasing his spirit power, cold air came out from every pore of his body and intertwined with his spirit power. While the spirit power spreaded, Yan felt that he got an extra eye, which could see the green scale beasts from a bird's eye view. 53 green scale beasts, including 30 level 2 ones, 20 level 3 ones, and 3 level 4 ones. The life patterns of those green scale beasts reflected into Yan's mind through the extended spirit power, so he instantly got hang of their abilities. Yan was surprised. 3 level 4 green scale beasts equaled 3 disaster realm warriors. If they were to damage the ship, then those level 4 green scale beasts would become much more frightening in water. One level 4 green scale beast could easily kill Linda in water, and the other green scale beasts could kill them all. Yan got a foreboding feeling. As he decided to withdraw his spirit power, Yan found something interesting. Wherever his spirit power had swept over, those green scale beasts had become quite anxious. Among them, the 3 level 4 green scale beasts emerged out of the water and started looking around, as if searching for something. After a while, Yan's eyes lit up. As he was about to withdraw the spirit power, the latter formed into a string and rushed toward a level 2 green scale beasts. All the spirit power was concentrated on that level 2 green scale beast, and it struck heavily. The cold spirit power seemed to be striking at a cotton ball containing immense hatred. Under the strikes of the spirit power, that cotton ball exploded and the hatred disappeared. A level 2 green scale beast sank deep into the sea and stopped chasing the ship. Yan's eyes sent out dazzling light as he tried to refine the spirit power again in excitement. The spirit power then shot towards another level 2 green scale beast. In the same way, cold spirit power destroyed the cotton ball and smashed the hatred. Another level 2 green scale beast went back to the bottom of the sea and its life aura disappeared. Yan showed a surprised smile as he lay there among goods, and once again began to refine the spirit power and shot it towards a level 3 green scale beast. Under the attack of the cold spirit power, that level 3 beast quivered and bled heavily from its mouth. It struggled strongly in the sea and tried to search for its enemy. This time, Yan's spirit power struck on a big cotton ball, but it didn't manage to crack it. Therefore, that level 3 green scale beast didn't go back to the sea bottom, as it was just that its soul was ruined and it struggled. 3 waves of spirit power attack tired Yan a bit, so he had to withdraw the spirit power unwillingly. Below Nirvana realm, spirit power was just spirit power, which could only be percept but cannot attack other souls. Xiaohani and Xasinyan both had explained it to him. Only when a warrior reached Nirvana realm could his spirit power turn into soul consciousness. Soul consciousness was transformed from spirit power. It could percept its surroundings, refine sea of consciousness, and perform soul attacks. Soul consciousness can be concentrated and formed into a sea of consciousness. Although soul consciousness originated from spirit power, the latter was much more powerful than the former. Expert warriors could transfer their soul consciousness into an array and penetrate the adversary's soul and kill it. Sea of Consciousness, the vitality of Nirvana realm, was formed by soul consciousness. Once the Sea of Consciousness was formed, it could increase the power of a martial spirit. However, spirit power could merely test its surroundings and had no other effect on souls. But just now, Yan had refined the spirit power into a soul attack, freezed the souls of the 2 level 2 green scale beasts, and also severely hurt the soul of that level 3 beast. It was obviously different from common people. Yan smiled as his eyes glittered. The abnormality of the spirit power must have something to do with the ice-cold flame inside the blood vein ring. Yan was quite certain about it. He was sure that his spirit power could perform soul attacks before it transformed into soul consciousness, only because his spirit power contained cold power. The cold power ran throughout his body and mixed with the spirit power when he pushed the spirit power out. His spirit power attack might not be substantial or do any harm to souls, but the cold power in it could damage others' souls heavily. No wonder that God Realm's warriors could combine Sky Flame and the Sea of Consciousness and become the most powerful in the same realm. Serene took a deep breath as he figured out this crucial fact. He still hadn't combined the ice-cold flame with spirit power, but merely that weak cold air made a difference, which froze those beasts' souls directly. Once he injected the ice-cold flame into the Sea of Consciousness and the spirit power turned to soul consciousness, he would be able to combine the cold air of the ice-cold flame with the soul consciousness. How horrible his soul consciousness would be then. Which warrior could defend against the attacks of soul consciousness? Their souls would be smashed into nothingness in an instant. Serene was so happy when he thought of that, and his face showed a big smile. Even though the ice-cold flame was restrained inside the blood vein ring, but its cold power still kept pouring into Serene's body. According to this, the cold air from the ice-cold flame will accumulate in his body and he could use more and more of it. Now he had found a new attack technique with which he could ruin other souls directly. Chapter 150, Undersea Battle. Chapter 151, Undersea Battle. Early morning. The boat was traveling to a mist-shrouded area. A light mist shrouded the sea. Linda and others had their complexion turned extremely ugly, and the nascent realm warrior among them showed frightened expressions on their face for the first time. Behind the boat, there were already more than 60 green-scale beasts gathered, and 4 of them were already at level 4. In the clear sea, it was already very difficult to deal with these green-scale beasts, and now with the boat in the foggy areas, if the green-scale beasts started to attack, then it will be even more difficult to deal with it. The green-scale beast lived in the sea, and under the sea, there was no fog. Therefore, the green-scale beast on the sea didn't get affected by the fog. Sometimes the things you fear always becomes true. At the moment when Linda and the others were shocked, the green-scale beasts, gathered behind 100 meters of the boat, suddenly increased their speed. One after one, the green-scale beast, as if like an arrow, quickly jumped from the sea and rushed up. Careful! Linda screamed. There are 4 level 4 green-scale beasts in there. In any case, don't go under the water. We will look for a chance to lure them out. This scream from Linda was a bit lifeless and weak. A level 4 green-scale beast was a huge threat in the sea. Even if she went under the water, she was still not capable of defeating it. Also, level 4 green-scale beast also possessed some wisdom, as long as they did not come out of the sea and choose to attack the boat from inside the sea. Then, if the boat gets destroyed and they fall into the water, then they will surely die. Linda could not stop the beast from attacking the boat. Her screams naturally seemed weak. Serene frowned, and in his heart lightly sighed, as he knew that this time the people on the boat were in deep trouble. And then, sure enough, one after another, the green-scale beast leaned over and surrounded the boat, but none of the green-scale beasts came out from the water. With the presence of level 4 green-scale beast, the rest of the green-scale beast became wiser and didn't recklessly rush out, but they only surrounded the boat, as if quietly waiting for something. Crack! 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 A creepy sound came from under the boat. The faces of the people on the deck suddenly became pale. The level 4 green-scale beasts have begun gnawing at the boat. Once the boat had been broached, and it sunk into the sea, then it will become the domain of the green-scale beast, and when they fall into the sea, then nobody could escape from the jaws of the green-scale beast. Linda's face also changed. Her beautiful eyes were full of despair, but she shouted persistently, "Go near the deck and attack the green-scale beasts in the sea. Nobody is allowed to give up." Understood. Sister Linda, we believe in you. Damn it. Even if I die, at least half of these level 3 green-scale beasts need to. The crew on the deck furiously came to the edge of the deck and attacked the green-scale beasts gathered around the boat. All kinds of rays were shot into the sea, aiming at the scales of the green-scale beasts. There were a few green-scale beasts that were too close to the water surface. They were stabbed by Linda and immediately lay flat with their bellies turned up and died by her fierce attacks. However, the rest of the warriors' attacks couldn't do much. The green scale beasts which had been hit only hit under the sea and dived back into the deep sea. Once the green scale beast went then 10 meters in the sea, any attack will be nullified by the sea water, and it didn't pose any more threat to the green-scaled beasts. One after one, the green-scaled beast began to dive. On the sea, the water splashed, but there were no longer any green-scale beasts that were injured. All of the green-scale beasts dove into the sea and stared furiously at the crew at the boat. Linda suddenly felt powerless. They can't do anything if the green-scale beast didn't come out, especially the level 4 green-scale beast who was still under the deck and carried gnawing on it. Once the deck was destroyed, then they will surely die. Serene also stood up. He quietly came to the deck and looked sullenly on the green-scale beast on the sea. If the green-scale beast didn't attack any warrior on the boat, then there won't be any negative energy produced, and without negative force, it's impossible to construct a gravitational field. Serene's face became sullen, and he coldly looked at Carmen and the others as an intense killing intent rose from the depth of his heart. Unless someone died, then they can get rid of the situation, and someone had to die immediately, or else if the deck got destroyed, then even with the dead, the result will still be the same. Serene was ready to kill. Get into the sea. Rather than waiting to die, it is better to fight with the green-scale beast in the sea. Anyway, if the deck destroyed, we will sink in the sea too. Then it would be better if we fight with green-scale beast in the sea before the deck is destroyed. Linda looked despaired, and she can only issue such a helpless decision. Fight with the green-scale beast in the sea. That was definitely an extremely unwise decision. Linda understood this better than anyone else. But now, she didn't have any other choice but to gamble with this decision. All right, every warrior on the boat started to become enraged in the desperate situation, and without any command, there were already 3 people who jumped into the sea. Carmen hesitates for a while, but he also jumped into the sea. Fight! Linda screamed, and was ready to jump into the sea. Serene suddenly came over near her as he frowned at her and hesitated. Although Linda seemed aggressive, but she knew that once she jumps into the water, she will definitely die. She froze for a moment and looked blankly towards Serene, as if she was waiting for something. But Serene couldn't do anything. He just shook his head with a sigh. Linda's face became sad. The hope in her eyes faded away, and she too jumped into the sea and fought the green-scale beasts with the other warrior in the sea. She really hoped that Serene was a master and would be able to help them at this critical moment. She had placed her last hope on Serene, but only got Serene's sigh in exchange for it. Linda's last hope completely vanished, and finally, she didn't hope for anything else and jumped into the sea to die together with her crew. Serene had a very complex expression. Looking at the empty boat, he hesitated a bit and suddenly also jumped into the sea. The last gaze from Linda before she jumped into the sea was full of despair and sadness, yet she jumped into the sea anyway. He was really touched with this, which made him feel pity for this girl. Whether for Linda or for himself, Serene must do something. Plop! Serene held his breath and dove into the sea. His eyes looked abnormally cold in the deep sea. A negative energy of despair and hatred suddenly came from the deep sea and started flooding into his meridians. A warrior which has a close relationship with Carmen was torn into pieces by a level 4 green scale beast, and he was the first casualty in the sea. As Linda and the others jumped into the sea, the level 4 green scale beast which were gnawing at the boat suddenly stopped and swarmed over and surrounded Linda and others. The boat wasn't the green scale beast's target. The reason they attacked the boat was to force Linda and the others to jump into the sea. And now, as Linda and the others were already in the sea, the green scale beasts naturally won't waste their time on the boat, and they surrounded Linda and the others immediately. In the sea, the green scale beasts were like shuttles. Their speed was extremely fast. The threat of the level 3 green scale beast in the sea was much dangerous than on land. Carmen and the others that were in human realm, after jumping into the water, their strength decreased significantly, and could they only barely fight with level 3 green scale beasts. And in the sea, there was also the 4 level 3 green scale beasts. For them, the presence of these 4 level 3 green scale beasts was like 4 mountains which can't be budged. Arg! Another scream of despair suddenly came from a warrior near Carmen. This man crazily forced his way into the group of green scale beast and was bitten by 5 level 3 green scale beast. His arms and legs were chewed into pieces, and he became the second casualty in the sea. After his death, the profound chi from his body was sucked by Serene, who quietly came up close. In his meridians, after obtaining the profound chi from 2 people, negative force began to spread. Although not much, but it was enough for Serene to construct a gravitational field. As he willed, Serene began to stir his profound chi and negative force, and constructed a millstone-sized magnetic field. The invisible magnetic field, because it was constructed in the water, began to form a spiral tornado, and it gradually formed a whirlpool in the water. Chi. In the sea, Linda was waving her double daggers, which seemed like dancing sea snakes. She killed some of the level 3 green scale beasts that rushed at her. The level 4 green scale beasts immediately noticed Linda, and one of them suddenly rushed towards her with a great speed. Poo-pee-oo. In the water, Linda performed her double snake twist, and slashes of sharp sword light were shot at the level 4 green scale beast's body. With level 4 green scale beast, the thickness of their scales was way more powerful than the level 3 ones. The sharp rays of Linda's swords can maybe penetrate through the level 3 beasts, but it couldn't penetrate through the scales of the level 4 green scale beasts, and it can only leave a deep sword cut on its scales. Another level 4 green scale beast quietly rushed over to Linda. This beast opened its mouth, and its teeth were like rows of sharp blades, which were aimed straight for Linda's waist. If she got bitten this time, then the beautiful supple body of Linda certainly will be broken into 2 parts, and then no matter how pretty she was, all that was left would be 2 pieces of a mutilated body. At this moment, Linda was struggling with the attack from another level 4 green scale beast. Under the attack from this beast, she was already scrambling and appeared very flustered. She saw the attack from the second beast, but she couldn't do anything. Linda's eyes were full of despair, her expression was miserable, and she could only see the attack from the another beast coming her way, but unable to do anything. At this moment, the tornado that mysteriously appeared in the sea suddenly moved fast. It made huge waves along the way and swept over everything in its way. When the sharp teeth of the second green scale beast were at the distance of 3 meters apart from Linda, it was suddenly swept up by the tornado and got forcefully dragged into it. Linda was shocked. She fearfully wanted to avoid the tornado that swallowed the beast. Unexpectedly, the tornado seemed to have eyes, and it suddenly changed its direction in the quick assault, passing from her side and engulfing another green scale beast that was struggling with her. 2 level 4 green scale beasts, in just a few seconds, were engulfed by a tornado that mysteriously appeared. Linda, who would have died, had escaped from the brink of death and fearfully watched the raging tornado on the sea. Her beautiful face was full of confusion. Suddenly a figure appeared in her sight. Hey, he also jumped down. Linda was shocked as she looked at the cold face of Serene in the water. Suddenly a strange thought emerged in her heart. Perhaps that tornado was made by him. Translated by Y. Chapter 151, Got It Wrong? Chapter 151, Got It Wrong. Sponsored by Vrajal. A miserable scream rang out in the sea. Another human realm warrior fell to the attacks from the level 4 green-scaled beast. The warrior was completely gored and torn by the other level 3 green-scale beasts. Once the warrior died, the profound chi in his body quickly dispersed into the air and was consequently absorbed into Serene's meridians, who was quietly approaching the scene. Serene secretly infused the negative energy with his profound chi and once again formed a gravitational field. Once the field was laid, the seawater once again surged and formed a whirlpool. No one knew how the whirlpool, once again, was formed in the sea. However, the whirlpool seemed to have eyes of its own, as it created waves in the sea, immediately swallowing one of the level 4 beasts. After swallowing the level 4 beast, the whirlpool didn't stop, and continued towards the remaining level 4 beast. In the underwater battle, Linda's group was on a back foot all the time. Right from the time they submerged under the sea, they were immediately surrounded by the green-scaled beasts. The level 4 green-scaled beasts, lurking in the waters, immediately started harassing them, and the group couldn't gain any advantage in the battle for even a single moment, whereas their casualties kept on increasing. The turning point in their battle came only when the two whirlpools unexpectedly appeared and started the devastation. The first whirlpool saved Linda from being attacked by the sharp teeth of the beasts and swallowed two green-scaled beasts, thus reducing the pressure on Linda. The second whirlpool came as a surprise and immediately swallowed one of the beasts and continued toward the others. Among the level 4 green-scaled beasts, 3 were already swallowed by the whirlpools, and 1 was being bitterly chased down by it. So, the beasts were in no position to care about Linda's group in the water. Linda massacred many of the level 3 beasts with a slash from her dagger. Her beautiful eyes were gleaming as she occasionally glanced at Serene. However, while being in the sea, Serene was totally calm and collected and didn't participate in the fight. There wasn't even a single energy fluctuation coming out of his body. Looking him like that, Linda got a little bit dumbfounded. Could it be that it wasn't him? Linda was full of uncertainty. She observed Serene for a while but still couldn't feel Serene releasing extraordinary powers, thus she remained completely in the dark. Serene kept on dodging the attacks of the level 3 beasts, and only when he couldn't dodge did he attack the beasts. Even then, he was not able to completely suppress the beasts. Linda was dumbfounded. She then suddenly shouted, "Get back to the boat." When the other warriors heard her shout, they quickly gathered towards Linda. Serene was no exception. He also quickly swam and rushed towards Linda. The two whirlpools that were stirring waves on the sea surface continued to rage around the green scale beasts and swallowed many of them. Under the sweeping of the two whirlpools, the remaining level 4 green-scaled beast was also got swallowed in the end, and was constrained by the whirling power of the whirlpools along with the other green-scale beasts. Linda took the lead. Her 2 daggers produced bright sword light, and cut the neighboring green-scaled beasts into pieces. Carmen was behind Linda. He held a silver-long spear. With the movement of his arms, he pierced through many level 3 green-scale beasts. These 2 people took the lead and messed up the formation of the green-scale beasts and rushed their way towards the boat. Serene's face was sullen, but he didn't said anything and only followed behind them. On the boat, the rope ladder was already hanging down. When Linda arrived, she didn't immediately board the boat herself. She shouted, "You guys go first." Those crew members didn't refuse. They seemed to have gotten used to Linda's behavior a long time ago. They all quickly went up the rope ladder and quickly climbed up the boat. Serene also leaned closely, but he didn't look at Linda and just grabbed the rope ladder to go up. "Get down." Carmen's expression was cold. He grabbed Serene's clothes and forcefully dragged Serene down. He shouted, "What, yeah, you go up first." A warrior near Carmen didn't hesitate. He immediately took the rope ladder out of Serene's hands and quickly climbed up. "Carmen," Linda shouted coldly, "even right now you still have to fuss about these things. He's not one of us, he should be the last." Carmen snorted and attacked with Linda to defend against the green-scale beasts that surrounded them. He said stubbornly, "He can only board the boat after all of us went up. This guy is retarded. He doesn't even have much power, yet he tried to copy us and got down from the boat. I saw that he didn't do anything in the sea. He only knew how to fool around. I don't know why he came down. He's no use at all, just a piece of garbage." Serene frowned. He didn't bother with him and leaned next to Linda, waiting for the others to board the boat. "You go up." Linda grabbed the rope ladder and shoved it into Serene's hands. "I'll take cover." "Okay." Serene was not fair-spoken at all. After he took the rope ladder, he quickly climbed up the boat. Linda and Carmen were the last to stay in the sea. Streaks of sword light shot out of Linda's dagger. The green scale beasts that came close were all chopped with their blood flying everywhere, and they kept trying to evade their attacks. The scales on level 3 green scale beasts couldn't hold against the sword of a disaster realm first sky warrior like Linda. When the 4 level 4 green scale beasts were constrained, even inside the sea, Linda could still have a sharp attacking momentum. Her long hair were completely wet by the sea water. A few cute hair strands messily fell on her breasts. With the waving of her arms, the strands of hair splashed out water drops. Linda swiftly twisted her hips and shot out the beams of sword light, forming into a semicircular arc. Using solely her power, she kept off more than 10 green scale beasts. When Carmen also got up on the boat, Linda killed 3 more level 3 green scale beasts. Then, she finally grabbed the rope ladder with one hand and continued waving the dagger with the other hand, while shouting, "Pull me up." The crew members on the boat had been waiting for this command from Linda. After they heard it, they all used their strength together and pulled Linda out of the sea. Set sail. Once Linda got on the boat, she immediately instructed, "While the level 4 green scale beasts are still constrained, we need to leave out of here immediately. Or else when the level 4 green scale beasts break their constraints, the odds would be against us." Needless for her to say, the crew members on the boat already started sailing. The boat quickly sailed in the faint fog. It went through the winds and waves, sailing towards the southeast direction. Green scale beasts lingered far behind the boat. They followed the boat somewhat seemingly unwilling to give up. On the sea surface, 2 whirlpools continued to rage around, pulling more green scale beasts into it. These 2 whirlpools came out of nowhere. No one knew how they were formed. And it also timely dragged the level 4 green scale beasts inside. It could be said that the reason why they could escape from this disaster was because of those 2 whirlpools. That was extremely lucky. Without these whirlpools, we would have died for sure. Jet lied down on the deck, feeling tired from all swimming and fighting. He looked up at the completely drenched Linda, whose curvy figure was showing, and laughed foolishly. Jet was in the second sky of human realm. He had followed Linda for many years. In these years, although they encountered many dangers, but none were hopeless like today's. Being able to escape from death, Jet felt really lucky. Now he had no strength at all, only that his stealthy eyes were still unusually clever. Don't know where that whirlpool came from. Carmen also smiled. I almost thought that there is a god that is secretly helping us. That whirlpool seemed to have came specifically for the green scale beasts. The 2 whirlpools almost completely swallowed all the level 4 green scale beasts. It's really unbelievable. I thought we were dead for sure, but I didn't expect that we would be able to breathe fresh air again. This is great. This is really great. Yeah, the whirlpools came too magically. They were just in time. Could it be that we got the blessing from the gods? The crew members on the ship all spoke in astonishment. They marveled at the magical nature of the whirlpools. Only Linda was silent. She didn't care about her curvy body being revealed because of her wet clothes. Her eyes flashed in a mysterious light, as if she had been thinking about some possibilities. After a long while, Linda suddenly looked at Serene deeply. She slightly bowed. A bunch of fair skin was revealed from her breasts as she said solemnly, "Thank you." "Linda, what are you doing?" Carmen suddenly stood up. He said mockingly, "Linda, you can't possibly be thinking that the whirlpools were made by this guy." This is a joke." Hua Jie kept shaking his head. He looked at Serene with a mocking expression. If this guy had the ability to create such big movements, then I could be a god realm master. Even Jet, who always leaned towards Linda, also shook his head with a bitter smile. "Sister Linda, did you exhaust yourself too much, that you're tired? This guy doesn't have any trace of power on him. Him alone couldn't possibly made such big movements." The rest of the crew members on the boat all looked at Serene. Their eyes were also filled with disdain. Linda didn't bother with the others. She still looked deeply at Serene and said again, "Thank you." Serene frowned and shook his head. "You got it wrong. It had nothing to do with me." He didn't want to get too much involved with these peoples, and he didn't plan to stay on the boat for long. Once they entered Cloud Island, he will immediately leave from the boat. After all, this was the Hangluo Sea, under the influence of the Three Gods sect, the Gu family, and the Dongfang family. If he exposed himself too much, it wouldn't be beneficial to him at all. Linda straightened her back and blankly stared at him. After a long while, she finally said to the other crew members, "Don't let down your guard. Gather your spirits, and be careful if those level 4 green scale beasts manage to escape and come back." Linda still had some questions, but she knew clearly about all the ins and outs of the crew members on this boat. She knew how much these people were worth, and knew that with the abilities of these people, it would be impossible to constrain those level 4 green scale beasts. On the boat, she was only unfamiliar with Serene, and doesn't know his exact details and cultivated realms. Plus, when she saw Serene sealed in an iceberg, of course, she would first suspect that Serene secretly did something. However, when they were in the sea, she truly didn't discover any special energy fluctuation on Serene. When the whirlpools were raging in the sea, Serene was still dodging in the water. The 2 whirlpools didn't even try to protect him. From these signs, Serene really didn't look like the secret helper. But if it wasn't Serene, who could it be? Could it be that the whirlpools were really formed naturally? Linda secretly shook her head. Her heart was full of questions. The look in her eyes towards Serene was filled with more unclear meanings. Serene pretended like he didn't notice. After he boarded the boat, he went back to the pile of mixed cargo. But in his hands, there were 2 pieces of green moon rocks. Right now, he was holding one of the green moon rocks towards the blood vein ring, trying to put the cold energy flowing out of the blood vein ring into the green moon rock. Chapter 152, Forging Secret Treasures. Chapter 152, Forging Secret Treasures. Sponsored by Vrajal. Sinking his consciousness into the blood vein ring, Serene found the cold ice flame was still trapped in its constraints. The flame still couldn't oppose the strength from the blood vein ring. The blood vein ring was still emitting the cold energy from the cold ice flame. The wisps of cold energy was continuously seeping into his body. The 2 green moon rocks were received by Serene from the corpses of the green-scaled beasts. Before the beasts died and sank to the bottom of the sea from Linda's strikes, they were secretly touched by Serene, who immediately took out the rocks from their bodies. Green moon rocks could itself be counted as a crystallized item inside the beast's body. They by itself had no power, but contained a considerable effect in calming the mind. According to what Carmen and others said, these rocks were very well the future demonic crystals of the green-scaled beasts. Once these beasts reached level 6, the rocks would gather all the power in their bodies and transform into demonic crystals. In that case, the green moon rocks should be able to store other types of energy. Serene kept noted this thing when listening to Carmen and the rest. This time in the sea, he was able to grasp 2 green moon rocks, capable of storing the cold energy belonging to the cold ice flame. Although the cold ice flame was trapped by the blood vein ring, cold energy was still flowing out. This cold energy seeped throughout Serene's body, but he still couldn't find many methods to use it. Only when spreading out his mind power could he amass some cold energy onto the mind power. However, Serene was only in the disaster realm. His mind power wasn't vigorous enough. Using the mind attack only 1 or 2 times would completely use up the mind power. Now under the situation where his powers had not fully recovered, Serene had to find another source of power to deal with the future unknowns in the future. Bringing the green moon rock near the blood vein ring, Serene's willed, and he tried to use mind power to draw out the cold energy inside the blood vein ring. Wisps of cold energy slowly flowed out of the blood vein ring. Under the guidance of Serene's mind power, a link seemed to have formed between the ring and the moon rocks. The mind power served as the body of the link, connecting the green moon rock and the blood vein ring. Cold energy seeped out of the blood vein ring and slowly went into the green moon rock. The green moon rock started releasing a faint green light, in which a pale white light could be seen. The moon rock soon turned as cold as ice. Traces of wisps of cold energy appeared inside the green moon rock. Those patterns were very clear, and they were releasing cold white light. It indeed was feasible. Shiryan felt very happy as he continued to concentrate his mind power in flowing the cold energy of the cold ice flame into the rocks. The moon rocks got colder and felt like ice cubes in his hands. But they were well controlled by Shiryan, and not much cold energy leaked out. Soon, the patterns on the moon rocks started getting more and more evident, and soon formed into tiny cracks. With the cold ice flame's cold energy seeping in it, the green moon rock seemed to have reached the limit of containing cold energy. If any more cold energy were to be forcefully added, the green moon rock might just explode. Shiryan's expression was serious, his eyes were burning like torches, and glued onto the green moon rock in his hand. When he saw that the green moon rock was really at its limit, he decisively moved the green moon rock away from the blood vein ring, and took back the mind power that connected the two sides. The green moon rock was extremely cold, but because Shiryan's body had transformed by the cold energy of the cold ice flame, he didn't really fear the cold energy. Wisps of cold energy were concentrated and wrapped in the middle of the green moon rock. Those who didn't touch this green moon rock would never feel what a shocking amount of cold energy it was hiding. Carefully keeping this piece of green moon rock with the same methods, Shiryan put cold energy into the other green moon rock. Both green moon rocks had obvious cracks. If there was a forceful collision, the green moon rocks would probably immediately explode. Once the green moon rock exploded, the large amounts of cold energy inside would immediately be shot out. From Shiryan's understanding of the cold ice flame's frightening cold energy, the cold energy in these two little pieces of green moon rocks right now was a little more than the amount inside the ice beasts that raged through Menluo Island. Once the cold energy bursted out, the surrounding people would definitely be affected. They might even immediately be frozen into ice statues by the cold energy. While his body was not yet recovered, these two green moon rocks counted as secret treasures. They might be of use in crucial moments. Carefully putting away the two green moon rocks, Shiryan continued to meditate with his eyes closed, feeling the change in his meridians. After 1 hour, wisps of strange power secretly flowed out of his meridians. Under Shiryan's full concentration, those strange powers all entered into the profound qi in his lower dantian. All that profound qi was just sufficient for a few human realm warriors, and to the now disaster realm Shiryan, it was only a drop in the bucket. While his meridians were purifying those powers, the negative emotions that seeped out weren't even able to affect Shiryan's state of mind. Although the strange powers that flowed out was little, but it was better than nothing. When this mass of strange powers flowed into his profound qi, Shiryan realized that his profound qi got a little stronger again. The profound qi in his body had already recovered to 30 to 40% of his peak state. If he wished, he could immediately kill Carmen right now. Even against Linda, he could still vanquish her with his extraordinary martial spirits and martial skills. Shiryan's mind calmed, and as a faint smile appeared on the corners of his lips, he continued to recover his profound qi. Here, your food. When it was late in the morning, Jet suddenly came over and casually threw a big piece of dried meat his way, and also passed a bag of clear water. Shiryan opened his eyes, he smiled and said, "How come I get to have meat today?" These days Shiryan had only been gnawing some dried steamed bread on the boat. The crew members on the boat all had large bowls of wine and meat, but no one had been friendly to him. Linda didn't care much about food and drinks. She only instructed Jet to give Shiryan a serving of food every day. Most of the time, Linda was resting under the deck, so she didn't know about the food treatment that was given to Shiryan. You have some courage in you. I'm giving these dried meat to you personally, so don't let Carmen see it, or else Carmen would definitely trouble me. Jet grinned. No matter how much power you have, when you dared to jump into the sea while surrounded by green scale beasts, that proved that you're not a coward. This I really admire, you're a real man, so you have the right to enjoy meat. Jet was only in the second sky of human realm on the boat. He usually followed the lead of Linda. Other than Linda, he also had to take notice of Carmen's mood. After all, Carmen had a great position on the boat. He also was regarded highly by Linda. Carmen didn't like Shiryan. Of course, he wouldn't have dared to give meat to Shiryan before. Yan's performance this time made Jet admire him a bit. That was why while Carmen was closing his eyes to meditate, he secretly added some good food for Yan. Yan chewed the dried meat and gulped down the clean water. He smiled faintly. I'll remember this favor. Jet laughed. I don't need you to return any favors. If you didn't have some guts, I would never have cared about you. To be honest, I also didn't like you. You were actually that close with Sister Linda while being naked. At that moment, I wanted to beat you up. Hee hee. Yan grinned. He shook his head and didn't say much. All right, eat slowly and don't let Carmen see it, or else that guy would come for me. Jet stood up. He patted Yan's shoulder and smiled. You remember, Sister Linda is the soul of our boat. Don't get any ideas. Sister Linda has a promising future. She will soon become a core disciple of the Three Gods sect. She's not someone you are good enough for. I know. Yan smilingly nodded. Jet didn't say much. He smiled and left from there, then gathered with the other crew members again. They were quietly and strangely laughing, discussing about various topics. The green scale beasts didn't continue to chase them. The 4 level 4 green scale beasts were trapped by Yan's gravitational field for at least a whole day. When the level 4 green scale beasts were not there, the rest of the beasts chased for a while, but finally gave up. The boat had long passed through the fog and returned to the normal course, continuing its journey towards Cloud Island in the southeast. Cloud Island was the Gu family's island. Cloud Island was very close to the Kiara Sea. This time when the Yang family took revenge on the Gu and Dongfang families, Cloud Island was an important target for attack. Apparently the Gu family's stronghold on Cloud Island was completely destroyed, and many Gu family guards had died there. Lately, the Yang family's powerful warriors were looking for trouble with the Dongfang family, so they didn't really care about Cloud Island. The Gu family took the opportunity and prepared to reconstruct the defense on Cloud Island, sending their own powerful warriors to the Cloud Island to defend against the Yang family's ferocious attacks. Among the strong warriors that were sent by the Gu family, there were Gu Jianga and his father Gu Lai, plus dozens of Gu family masters. The reason why these people were going to Cloud Island was that other than reconstructing the island, the main thing was that they wanted to negotiate with the Yang family at Cloud Island. They didn't want to continue fighting with the Yang family. Because the 4th demon area had been preparing to attack in the past few months, the demons seemed to have the tendency of a massive invasion. The Yang family also agreed to the idea of Gu family's truce and prepared to send people to Cloud Island to discuss about this with the Gu family. The reason why Yan was following Linda and the rest to Cloud Island was because he knew that Gu Jianga would be on the island, and he also knew that people from the Yang family might also appear at the Cloud Island. He even guessed that maybe Xia Xinyan would appear too, and that was why he decided to join in. At dusk, the boat sailed on a sea covered with submerged reefs. Linda quietly came out from below the deck, her hair flew in the wind, and she frowned. Hang up all the flags of the sect, and everyone be careful. There are pirates in this area. Sister Linda, would the pirates dare to touch our boat? Hua Jie sneered. Do they have such massive guts or something? If they still dared to attack, knowing that our boat belongs to the sect, I will make them bear all the consequences. Among the many big islands of the Endless Sea, there were many pirates roaming about. Pirates didn't usually stay in one place, as once they found an opportunity, they would go loot the traveling ships. Usually, pirates wouldn't dare to touch ships that dealt with the 15 forces. But some would still like to take risks, have this one haul and then escape to another sea. They were not afraid of being chased across the seas. Usually not, but it's hard to say. Linda frowned and said, if it were a big ship like the level of the sect's Sun, Moon, and Star, meaning there would definitely be strong warriors from the sect, then the pirates definitely won't dare to make trouble. But with a boat like ours, you can know it's just a transporting boat of the outer disciples. There definitely won't be any strong warriors on the boat, so maybe the pirates would dare to attack. If one comes, I'll kill one. If 2 comes, I'll kill both. Carmen's face was full of disdain. Just mere pirates. They're not worth my attention. Ha ha ha. Kid, you sure are arrogant. I'd like to see what abilities you have for such arrogance. A savage big laugh suddenly came from behind a giant reef in the distance. Once the laugh was heard, a bunch of thin boats appeared from behind the reefs and quickly sailed towards Linda's boat. Dash. Chapter 153. Speak Out. Chapter 153. Speak Out. Sponsored by Vrajal. Dash. The thin boats were only 4 to 5 meters long, and on each little boat, there were 3 to 4 pirates. These pirates had dark complexions, they were all shirtless, with different demon beast and skull tattoos engraved on them. On the 12 thin boats, there were more than 30 pirates. These pirates were mostly in the human and nascent realms, and only 3 pirates were in the first sky of disaster realm. The pirates held utensils and sticks as weapons and laughed strangely. They quickly surrounded Linda's boat. There were submerged reefs everywhere, and Linda's boat was slightly big, so it was inconvenient for it to move. But because these thin boats were elongated and narrow, they were quite agile. They moved in and out of the submerged reefs, like flexible snakes. Not only were these submerged reefs unable to obstruct them, they were actually like a natural protective barrier for them. The leading big man with a beard was topless. His muscles were all popped up, and his body was filled with demonic and monstrous tattoos. He held a big black mace in his hand and creepily laughed as he came. On the thin boat of this big man, there stood a flag. There was a blood-dripping eyeball embroidered on the flag, and the flag flew in the sea wind. The blood-dripping eyeball looked like it was blinking and seemed very ferocious and frightening. Linda didn't care in the beginning, however. When she glanced towards that flag, her pretty face suddenly changed. She shouted, "You are the blood pupil from the Black Sea." Hee, pretty girl, you sure know a lot. If you've heard of us, the blood pupil, then things are a lot easier. That man with the beard laughed out loud. Once Carmen, Jet, and the rest heard that these pirates were actually the pirate force, blood pupil, from the Black Sea, their faces also changed. Carmen, who spoke arrogantly before, furrowed his brows deeply. He had a sullen expression. The blood pupil was active in the Black Sea at first, and they never followed any rules. They even dared to loot the ships that dealt with the Heaven Lake Divine Land, the Magical Wonderland, and the Sacred Sect. The blood pupil had always acted savagely, and finally this resulted in the 3 forces of the Black Sea into exterminating them. Thus they could no longer stay in the Black Sea and had to move to the other seas. Once the blood pupil escaped to another sea, they still acted arrogantly. Once they caught any opportunity, they would rob the ships of the 15 forces, just like they always did in the past. Once they realized their situation was unfavorable, they would escape to another sea again, and like that they were always on the move. In the Endless Sea, the blood pupil was the toughest of all the pirate forces. They were also the pirates that annoyed the 15 forces the most. Thus, once they heard these people came from the blood pupil, both Carmen and Linda looked a little uneasy. They realized that the situation was not well. "We are from the 3 God sect. We have never had any associations with the blood pupil. Unless you would dare to have ideas about us." Hua Jia's face was cold. "I don't think our 3 God sect had tried to siege you, so you better not look for any trouble. I don't think there's a need to displease the 3 God sect just for some worthless resources. Haha, as long as we kill all of you, how would the 3 God sect know we did it?" That man with the beard laughed wildly. He looked at Carmen in disdain. "Kid, didn't you say that you'll kill as many as they come?" Carmen's expression was grim. He snorted coldly. "Exactly what do you want?" Linda stepped forward. Her pretty brows were tightly knitted. "There are only a few rocks on the boat. Are they really worth all this trouble?" "Pretty girl, you have to come with us. Our big brother moves with difficulty, and he wants to make a deal with you. If the deal is done, then we won't do anything to you. Maybe we would even gift you some things. How's that?" That bearded man had a big smile on his face. "Sister Linda, you can't go." Jet couldn't help but exclaim, "The blood pupil has a horrible reputation. God knows what vicious ideas they're having." "Hee, pretty girl, what do you say? If the deal is done, we can let you leave unscathed. Or else, hee." The bearded man said. "All right, I'll go take a look." Linda pondered for a moment and suddenly nodded in agreement. Linda, I'll go with you. Carmen's face changed. At crucial moments, he wasn't stupid, he said. If the two of us go together, at least, we can look after each other. Kid, you can't go. That bearded man sneered. He shook his head. A guy like you would only ruin things if you went. You should just calmly stay on the boat. Linda, I'll go with you. Right at this moment, Serene already walked out of the corner and stood alongside Linda. Carmen, Huijia, Jet, and the rest were all shocked. They gazed at Serene with a strange look. Kid, why are you causing trouble? Carmen's face immediately darkened. He sneered. Serene, what are you going for? Jet also exclaimed, you won't be of much help there anyway. What exactly are you trying to do? Serene didn't bother with them. He only looked at Linda and smiled indifferently. Can you bring me too? Linda's beautiful eyes were filled with complex feelings. Her expression kept shifting. Then after a while she finally nodded lightly and looked towards that bearded man. She said, I'm bringing someone. I hope you don't mind. The bearded man frowned. He glanced at Serene a few times and nodded. Okay. Good. Linda glanced at Serene. Follow me. Okay. Come up on our boat. There are too many submerged reefs here. There would be too many obstacles if your boat were to move. The bearded man shouted. A thin boat quickly came up, and another Disaster Realm warrior on that boat sneered. Come on the boat quickly. Don't waste my big brother's time. Linda didn't hesitate for long. She leapt up and steadily landed on that thin boat. Serene's face was calm. He also jumped after Linda and stood alongside her. Brothers, half of you stay here and watch them. The bearded man shouted loudly and immediately said, Kong, let's go. That Disaster Realm man on Serene's boat nodded. He urged the two pirates beside him to move the boat, and the thin boat made its way through the submerged reefs, going quickly towards the left side. Soon, a 40-meter-long iron ship suddenly appeared in Serene's view. The flag of the Blood Pupil was hung on that iron ship, and on the deck, a well-mannered-looking middle-aged man, with a white complexion, squinted his long, thin eyes. He had a smile on his lips, and he sat on a wheelchair. His legs were broken off from below the knee, so indeed he could not move very well. This middle-aged man, with a white complexion, was in the third sky of the Disaster Realm. The profound chi in his body was vigorous and pure. But his legs were cut off, so his power should have been greatly reduced. Behind him, there were more than 20 Blood Pupil pirates, mostly in the human and nascent realms. They all had sturdy bodies and looked aggressive. You guys go up. When the thin boat was about to lean towards that iron ship, the cold-looking pirate named Kong said to Serene and Linda coldly. Serene and Linda both remained silent. They went up to the deck using the rope ladder that was lowered. I am Lin Xiaochang. It truly delights me that you two would come here to see me. That crippled, white-faced, middle-aged pirate sat on the wheelchair and put his fists together. He said with a smile on his lips, You are all outer disciples of the Three Gods sect. Yes. Linda nodded and frowned. I wonder what deal are we going to discuss, now that you have gotten us here, sir? You guys should be shipping the cargo on the boat to the Goof family's island. Is that right? That Lin Xiaochang calmly took a sip of tea and smiled. We want to add some things onto your boat. I hope you can bring these things along and give everything collectively to the Goof family. How's that? Add things? Linda was surprised. What things? Do you have to know? Lin Xiaochang frowned. Of course I have to know. All right then. We want to add boxes of explosives onto your boat. Lin Xiaochang smiled. What do you think of it? You want to go against the Goof family? Linda shouted. That's right. Lin Xiaochang nodded. His expression suddenly turned dark. The Goof family had hit us quite hard. We need to teach them a lesson. As long as you do as we say, and send the explosives to the Goof family, then once you leave we will detonate the explosives. All the Goof family members present there be blown to death. Don't worry, no one would know that it's the problem with the resources that you guys sent out. No. Linda shook her head. We have regulations in this field of work. Our Three Gods sect and the Goof family are allies. I can't hurt the Goof family. Secrets will not last forever. Once this deal gets exposed, not only would we be executed by the Three Gods sect, our families would also be doomed. I absolutely will not help you. There is no more room for consideration? Lin Xiaocheng squinted his eyes. He lowered his head and took another sip of tea. This deal is absolutely impossible, Linda said decisively. You don't agree. Doesn't mean others won't either. Lin Xiaocheng raised his head. But this time he didn't look at Linda. Instead, he looked at Shiryen. Little brother, if you agree to this, we can take care of this woman. Then we will make you the leader of the boat, as long as you ship the things to the Gu family for us. How's that? I would be glad to help you take care of the Gu family. Yen smiled indifferently. Linda's face changed. She looked at Shiryen with hatred and shouted, You traitor. Good. Lin Xiaocheng's face was joyful. He nodded towards the bearded man and Kong, then said, This girl is useless now. Seize her, and you guys can have your fun. After that, just take care of her immediately. Understood, big brother. Hehe, later I'll have a taste of this girl first. The bearded man laughed. He slowly approached Linda with Kong. These two were like Linda. They were both in the disaster realm. Now on the boat there were still dozens of human and nascent realm pirates, plus Lin Xiaocheng was there too, so Linda had no way to escape. You think he can convince the others? Linda sneered, and looked at Shiryen with hatred. He's not even from the Three Gods sect. If he were to take the lead, the Gu family would never recognize him. The crew members on the boat would also never accept his leadership. This is a waste of your efforts. Lin Xiaocheng froze. He smilingly looked at Shiryen. Little brother, you can't take care of those crew members. I can't take care of them alone, but with all of you, it should be all right. Shiryen smiled. Those who can recognize the facts of a situation are wise. I don't want to die. I know what I should do. You have potential. Lin Xiaocheng leaned his back on the wheelchair and stretched. He grinned and said, Little brother, if you have some interest in this girl, you can also have a taste later. But you would need to wait for my two brothers to play with her first. How about I let you be the third one to fuck her? Isn't that generous enough for you? Thank you very much. Shiryen lowered his head and put his fists together in gratitude. But the look in his eyes was chilled to the bone. A murderous flash fleeted across his eyes. The reason why he wanted to follow Linda here was because he planned to use these people's lives to recover his own power. Although he also wanted to take care of the Gu family, but the most urgent priority right now was to recover the power in his body as soon as possible. He quietly calculated for a moment, estimating that the mysterious strange powers formed from these people's deaths should have been enough to make him recover to his original state. Chapter 154, Kill. Chapter 154, Kill. Linda was being approached by Beard and Kong step by step, while the two daggers were in her hands. The 5 human realm warriors behind Lin Xiaocheng also came out and stood beside Linda. Being surrounded by 2 disaster realm warriors and 5 human realm warriors, it was impossible for her to run away. Lin Xiaocheng was delighted. Lying lazily on the wheelchair, his slender eyes were cold and bent. Shiryen, who was 7 meters off from Linda, smirked strangely and looked calmly at the surrounded Linda. You're shameless. Linda bit her lips. Her bright eyes were full of anger. Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you go. Shiryen smiled, shrugged, and said, Don't blame me. I also want to live. As long as I can live on, I will forsake everything. Shameless. Linda screamed and suddenly rushed up. Once again, the 2 daggers unleashed the double snake twist martial skill. The daggers were engulfed by sword light, and the light resembled ribbons. Linda didn't care about the attack from the both sides anymore, and she rushed straight towards the front. Kong, who was blocking her, after seeing her tenacity, suddenly smiled and moved away. Linda didn't bother with Kong and rushed from his side. She didn't care for the mace attack from Beard, who was on her left, and shot out towards Shiryen. I will kill you first. Linda was furious. She suddenly came out from the group and rushed forward towards Shiryen like a bolt. Shiryen suddenly panicked and hurriedly ran behind Lin Xiaocheng to evade it. He shouted, Quickly stop her. Stop her. The sea bandits were disappointed with Shiryen's performance as they showed their expression of disdain. Lin Xiaoqing frowned and commanded from the wheelchair, "Seize that girl." Several human realm warriors behind Lin Xiaoqing rushed up together and stood in front of Lin Xiaoqing. After seeing the audacious Linda rushing at Lin Xiaoqing, Kong and the beard uncle did hesitates. They smiled and slowly approached her. Yan was only 3 steps away from Lin Xiaoqing. After observing Kong and that beard uncle's expression, he pondered about something. Lin Xiaoqing is definitely hard to deal with. These 2 men appeared too confident. It's already enough to prove that Lin Xiaoqing's strength was more than enough to deal with Linda. Because they knew about Lin Xiaoqing's true strength, so they were able to stay so calm and didn't bother about Linda's attack on Lin Xiaoqing. Yan's face was full of panic as a series of thoughts quickly appeared in his mind. He concentrated his spirit power and didn't dare to relax. "I will kill you." Linda hated Yan from the bottom of her heart. She was like a fierce tiger rushing straight towards Yan, not caring about the wounds on her body or her surroundings at all. "This girl, she is really daring." Lin Xiaoqing smiled. He glanced at Yan and said, "Little brother, don't be afraid. No matter how strong this girl is, she will still fall down." No, Yan nodded. His eyes suddenly became cold and his panicked face instantly vanished. Lin Xiaoqing has been observing Yan quietly, and after he saw the sudden change of expression of Yan, his slender eyes suddenly turned ruthless. Bang! Suddenly, the wheelchair under Lin Xiaoqing bursted open and a rain of arrows were shot towards Yan. Yan looked callous and smirked. Dang, 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 dang. Suddenly, a series of sound came out from Yan's body. Under the petrification martial spirit, the arrows couldn't penetrate through Yan's body. It only ripped the clothes from his body and then fell down. "I knew there was something wrong with you." Lin Xiaoqing laughed and the wheelchair suddenly regressed quickly. The one who had the courage to came over is definitely not a timid one. "You want to kill me? Ha ha ha, you're still too young." Lin Xiaoqing laughed and once again hit the wheelchair. A shining centipede flew out from under the wheelchair. It was 156 meters long and had a thick stench. As the centipede appeared, it exhaled a toxic smoke toward Yan. Yan dazzled his body and strangely avoided that toxic smoke. With his will, the gravitational field which moved slowly toward Lin Xiaoqing suddenly fell from the sky. As the field expanded, it immediately trapped Lin Xiaoqing. Ka. Under the rotation of the gravitational field, a cracking sound came from the wheelchair, but Lin Xiaoqing was still unharmed, but he appeared gloomy. A wisp of shining light shot out from his soft armor. That armor was extremely soft yet durable and firmly protected his body. Under the gravitational field, Lin Xiaoqing couldn't move his body, but his body remained unharmed. Yan knew that the gravitational field power had been reduced and it couldn't kill Lin Xiaoqing. When he saw Lin Xiaoqing had been trapped, he didn't hesitate one bit and threw out a green moonstone. The green moonstone turned into a chilly light ray and immediately fell into the gravitational field. Boom! In the field, a chill rain made of cold force bursted out, turning into a drizzle and spreading outwards in the field. The body of Lin Xiaoqing was still unharmed in the field, but after being coated with the drizzle which was formed from ice-cold flame, his body quickly frozen up. In just a moment, not only did Lin Xiaoqing turn into an ice sculpture, even the field was frozen just because of a small green moonstone. Lin Xiaoqing, who has been turned into an ice sculpture, still had a smile on his face. It seemed like everything was still being controlled by him. "Big brother! Big brother!" The sea bandits on the ship screamed and frantically lunged toward Yan. Kong and the bearded man who were dealing with Linda suddenly emitted a deadly light from their eyes and looked in shock at Yan. All of this happened in a split second. The warriors on the ship still hadn't realized what was happening as they watched the frightened Yan from before suddenly laugh at Lin Xiaoqing. The crowd only heard Lin Xiaoqing laughter, but after they looked back at him, he was already turned into an ice sculpture. The sea bandits on the ship suddenly became crazy. Not caring about Linda anymore, they rushed toward Yan, trying to prevent his next action. Yan suddenly jumped up like a cheetah and arrived near the gravitational field. The spirit power from his brain rushed out and struck at an incoming human realm warrior. This warrior was already at the third sky of human realm. His brain imploded, and blood started to uncontrollably flow out of his eyes, ears, and nose. He looked very mournful. Crack! Shiryen stretched out his hand and crushed his throat, after quickly crossing him and arriving behind Lin Xiaocheng. He gathered negative force and punched Lin Xiaocheng's skull. Ka. The skull of Lin Xiaocheng, who had turned into ice, broke into pieces after being hit by Shiryen. Shiryen looked on coldly. After seeing the skull pieces, he lightly sighed in his heart and looked into the centipede in front of him that was wandering around, seemingly confused. Again, another soul attack shot out. The spirit power was like a sharp sword, carrying the chill from ice-cold flame. It pierced into the centipede's soul. After being hit, the soul of the centipede seemed to have suffered a heavy injury. GG. Frightened from the injury, the centipede didn't care about Lin Xiaocheng anymore. It immediately turned into a shining light and flew toward the stern. Shiryen looked on coldly, seemingly enjoying the profound qi from Lin Xiaocheng and the human realm warrior. He quietly mustered the negative energy in his body. A white mist covered his body. A bloodthirsty, violent, and brutal aura rose from his body. Boom, boom. His left hand formed death seals. 7 death seals released from his hand towards the incoming sea bandits. Just before they could reach Shiryen, 3 human realm warriors suddenly stopped in their tracks as holes the size of a palm formed on their chest. The 7 death seals in a row penetrated through the 3 human realm warriors. The death seals didn't stop there and still rushed out until it arrived at the bearded man's chest. Under the impact of the 7 death seals, the huge body of the bearded man flew backwards as the seals drilled into his body, destroying his vitality. The bearded man was already dead before he hit the ground. His eyes turned white as his soul extinguished. The death seal was very tenacious. It still killed the bearded man who was at the disaster realm after traveling through 3 human realm warriors. After they died, the profound qi on their bodies flowed into Shiryen. On the field full of corpses, the aura of brutality on Shiryen became firmer. He was like a demon Azura who had risen out from a sea of blood. Once again, he formed death seals on his hand. Boom, boom. This time after the death seals were released, 5 bodies of the sea bandits were instantly penetrated, and they died tragically on the spot. Shiryen looked on coldly while he walked on the field full corpses, gathering the negative energy and forming invisible gravitational fields. One by one the sea bandits floated into the sky, swirling around in the gravitational field. Shiryen looked calm as he walked along the gravitational fields. He stretched out his hand and ripped out each of the imprisoned sea bandits' neck. On the steel ship, the remaining sea bandits were frightened and stepped back. Even Kong was frightened. After Lin Xiaocheng and Bearded Man were killed in such a bizarre manner, Kong finally understood the meaning of fear. He quickly stepped back and shouted, "Brothers, retreat." Shiryen looked callous as he looked at him. Kong, who was on the sea, suddenly flew up. It seemed like he was being grasped firmly by an invisible hand. Shiryen looked on calmly. He slowly walked toward the struggling Kong and pierced his finger straight into Kong's neck. Linda was stunned and had forgotten to deal with the sea bandits that were running away as she stared dumbfoundedly at Shiryen. Her heart was astonished. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.